All right, welcome back to the Catch Up, the Sean and Dameon show. I am Sean.
I'm Dameon.
Yes, and our first season is almost over, and yet it feels as though we are just getting started because we today have perhaps our biggest guest star yet. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you, he's all over the internet, at least within certain circles, so you've probably heard of him. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Ryan Walterson.
Hello there. It's it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, how are you doing, Ryan?
Doing very good. It is a mildly fine Saturday afternoon over here, and I'm just happy to be talking about various stuff with you guys.
You said mildly pleasant. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's like the best way to put it, because it's just a Saturday afternoon, like nothing big has happened to me yet, or that's the best way to put it.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, hopefully this show would be big for you, and it'll turn this Saturday towards the right direction, and it'll transition from mildly pleasant to incredibly pleasant, hopefully,
Exactly.
So anyway, Ryan, well, how about you introduce yourself to our audience? I'm pretty sure by having you on our show, we're going to have a few more eyes than normal on this episode. But for people who are unfamiliar with you, what you do, what do you just tell the people anything about yourself you would like to tell?
Well, I am Canadian. I
I
I live in a town called Geraldton. I am an avid connoisseur of film and television primarily, and I used to do reviews for the local paper over here, or whenever a new film would come out. And nowadays, my primary function with helping people is I do a lot of research and co-writing for various YouTubers and friends, and I mostly do either help the research material by linking sources or helping put things in order, and a lot of times helping edit scripts and all sorts of other things like that. And it's been a lot of fun for like over the last like number of years at this point.
Okay, yeah. Well, Ryan, you said you used to do reviews for the local paper. I've always wondered, uh, what does that pay? Like, I can't, well, I have no basis of comparison, but like I always, as a kid, I thought that would be a fun thing to do. Either write, freelance write for the paper or for like an internet site, blog sites or something. But
Mhm.
was that fairly what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word when you're making money, Damon? What's the word for it? Fairly you know the word I'm looking for. What
Advantageous?
not
No,
advantageous,
that's
but
not it.
what's the word when you're
Lucrative?
making lucrative? Yes. Well, was it fairly lucrative a job for you?
You mean if by lucrative you mean being paid nothing, then
Aw.
yes.
Mm,
Well,
mm,
because it was a small paper anyway, so that kind of
No.
explains the lack of payment. But what helps is, or at least what we're trying to help with now is we're scavenging other papers throughout the province to possibly expand the horizons, do reviews there, and maybe that could involve like some sort of payment. But either way, it was fun doing it at the time. Either way.
Okay. I mean, at least you're having fun and you're doing something you like, which is, watching movies and I'm assuming TV shows maybe too as well. I mean, you're not getting paid at all and you are still fairly young. Doesn't that go against like what child labor laws, making you write for these
Well, I
papers?
am well, I am on a disability program, so I do get
Ah,
sent money at the end of the month.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know if it was something different they do in Canada or if the labor laws were a little bit different. But anyway,
Yeah.
Ryan, when we were creating the show initially, and I told Damien what each episode would be about, and that we would be doing an episode on animation. Instantly, you came to mind. I knew that I had to get this guy, Ryan Walterson, on our show. And the reason being is both you and I, we are avid followers of the podcast Double Toasted. Um, I mean, we both have probably similar experiences in being exposed to them and then following them all throughout their, various incarnations of that podcast of that show.
Mhm.
And Ryan, like, of course, I've noticed just over the past few years, whenever anybody on that show brings up anything having to do with animation or Muppets or just anything, you are always right around the corner. It's like calling Beetlejuice. Like Ryan always sends an email saying like, hey, well, actually the history of this animated project is this, and it was directed by this and that and this. So Ryan, I am wondering, like, being someone that's so young, how did you get so exposed to like animation and stuff like that? Like, did you, as a, I just, how do you know so much? Like, what's the story there?
Well, reading helps.
Uh,
I would often be interested in reading books about like film history or animation history, and a lot of times when I would have certain movies on DVD or even VHS, I would always watch the bonus features and
mm,
learn about the production of things, and I would always pay attention to the news sometimes, and I would always notice certain names when watching movies and names that people would bring up, and they would always stick with me, and I would have them memorized. And I even when I was like really young, my parents and relatives would be so impressed about all the facts that I would have memorized. Like even when I was like I was like 7, I would say that, oh, Steven Spielberg directed E.T., and they were like, why do you know that? It's like it says on the cover.
that sounds very similar to what I used to do, because it was the same thing when like DVDs came out and you got all the bonus features and everything. I would like scour through all of those. I would listen to the audio commentaries and everything. And as a kid, you start to notice, like you said, you start to notice common names that keep popping up. So I'm like, oh, this same director, directed this other movie that I like. And you start developing that, I don't know, that that knowledge in your head. You kind of build up this list of writers, producers, whatever that you start to follow. We're going to talk about some of them in this episode later. But like Dameon, did you do like a similar thing growing up, like with like the movies that you watched or the you know popular things? Did you like pay attention to like the behind the scenes aspects of those?
Well, as a kid, I was just drowning in cartoons. It was
Uh,
cartoons.
Cartoon,
Um,
cartoon, cartoon, cartoon Fridays.
and um, I liked movies a lot, but I was relating more to these drawn figures more than I was to people. Um, so as I got older, I started recognizing faces from movies I've seen from when I was young to when I was a preteen, since I was a teen, into my adulthood. Um, yeah.
okay, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see because I don't know, something about like all those behind the scenes things or whatever. Like, I mean, I mean, we could, I guess it has like there's a bigger discussion there because like, is it just me or do like movies, even on Blu-rays and whatnot, the behind the scenes stuff isn't as, uh, what's the word? Like, not all inclusive or whatever. There's another term for it. But it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm
What are you
dropping
trying to
words all
say?
day
What are you trying
where
to,
like
what are you getting at?
all encompassing. Okay, so like for an example, like Finding Nemo, the Finding Nemo DVD, I think it was like 2 discs, and
Yeah.
it was like packed with all this behind the scenes stuff or whatever, hours upon hours of like bonus features and like
Mm.
interviewing the actors. There's like a special where the kid that voiced Nemo, he was like on a scooter and he was going around Pixar Studios and talking to everybody. And there's a part where gave him like a plate of cookies, and in retrospect, that's kind of creepy.
Hey, do you like cookies? You like animation, right?
But like as a kid,
Take
like
this
I was
plate
like,
of
man,
cookies, Sonny.
as a kid, I was like, man, that's really cool. And I don't know. It seems like if you get a Blu-ray now, like you're lucky to have maybe like half an hour worth of special features. Like, is it just me or is it is that like a
I
thing?
gotta check on it. Cause I know,
It depends on the movie, I
Uh,
guess.
yeah, I would say that, yeah. Cause I got a lot of Blu-rays. Um, it's so funny you say Finding Nemo because I was just talking about Finding Nemo yesterday
uh,
about like how gruesome it is. Like first scene, the barracuda just kills
everybody.
the wife and the kids. Like how dare Pixar? They just slice your throat as soon as they open up the movie.
Coral, get inside the house, Coral. No, Coral, don't. They'll be fine. Just get inside. You, right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think the other thing is like as kids, maybe we all had like a lot more free time than we do now. So like there's nothing but time back then to watch these movies over and over again, watch all the bonus features and whatnot, listen to the audio commentary tracks and everything. Um, and nowadays time is limited, and you have only so much free time. So you want to fill it with what's most important to you, I guess, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. But Ryan, the other thing about you that I notice is I can't go anywhere like on the internet without your name popping up somewhere. So like there's Double Toasted, and then like I would listen to the Pan Pizza, Rebel Taxi, the Pan Pizza Pizza
Yep.
Party podcast, and then I started listening to their old like backlog because I needed something new to listen to, and they randomly said, "Oh, we got a question from Ryan Walterson," and like this was years ago, an episode from years
Yeah.
ago, and you popped up. I was listening to Junk Food Cinema with C. Robert Cargill and Brian Salisbury, and then just randomly they had an episode where like, "Oh, we got a viewer request from Ryan Walterson," and you had them watch Follow That Bird, the Sesame Street
Yep.
movie.
Yep. Classic.
Saber Spark on YouTube. I'm pretty sure he mentioned you at some point.
Yep. He's like he's the one I still continually help a lot with.
I mean, maybe it has to do with the circles that we find ourselves in, but like, it's just, I can't escape you, man. It's like, I had to get you on the show just to, finally confront whatever this is. Like, why are you following me around? Like in my podcast viewing, YouTube watching habits. But I mean, how did you get involved with these people because you're doing research for like Saberspark and like you work with, was it Jim Grisio? What's his name? Jim?
Yeah, Jim Gizriel, yeah.
Okay, like both of you guys do like research for Saber, right?
Yeah, and the way that goes is, well, initially, like Saber and I, we became good friends on Discord, and about 2 years ago, like early 2020, he asked if I wanted to be help with any research for some of his videos because he was so impressed by the knowledge I know of so many things of. Mm-hmm. And when sending him stuff that I figured I would love to help you. And the first one I helped with was his episode on Rock and Rule, which was a lot of fun to work on because that's such a strange movie of the 80s, and finding all the information before it was pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. Are you friends with Pan Pizza?
Yeah, we're Discord mutuals too, and
okay.
I would talk to him like doing like either his Discord Patreon chats, and I would help send him stuff for certain videos. Most notably, I was the one who requested the video he did on Fraggle Rock, which I thought turned out pretty excellent.
Okay, yeah. So I like how like through you the degrees of separation between us and these YouTubers are shortening, which is pretty cool. Dameon, do you have any idea who these people are?
Nope.
Nope. I feel like the stupid kid in class right now.
Oh no, it's a different side of the internet. I don't know. Well, like Pan Pizza or Rebel Taxi or whatever, he does videos on kind of niche topics that like things that I usually think about, like being I don't know, excited about or nostalgic about or whatever, and people don't really talk about them. And so like he usually like brings stuff up, but like he does a video on like obscure GameCube games or whatever.
Yeah.
and like, I grew up playing the GameCube or whatever, so it's something I could appreciate. But also, like, he does a lot of stuff about animation and like obscure animation topics and concepts and stuff or whatever, artists and whatnot. So like he's probably one of my favorite YouTubers. Also, just with the aesthetic that he has, it's very unique, and the production and editing that he does for his videos is very like I said, very, very striking because it's different from what a lot of people do.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that's got to be Dameon. Just for the sake of argument, what do you follow any YouTubers or anything? Maybe Ryan's like somehow related to them too.
Like any YouTubers that, like specifically, like
Yeah, I mean, like who
I
do
follow a
you?
lot of
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
follow a lot of gaming channels.
Uh,
Um,
Hmm.
I follow a lot of like UK dudes.
uh,
Uh,
Um, what else? What else? What else? I don't think a lot of tech dudes, a lot of dudes like review new phones or new tech that's coming out. Um, I don't think I follow any channels that you know, talk about like how like older shows or older games or go in depth on, say, like an old video game, like you just said, like an obscure video game. It's mainly like tech stuff,
yeah.
video games, um, and like what is it? Was like just conversations
Okay.
and
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
like UFO stuff.
UFO. I think the way I found Pan, I was looking for because occasionally I'll think of like a
Pan's Labyrinth.
no, no. Pan, his name is Pan.
nah.
Pan. Pan. Pan Pizza.
Pizza.
I don't know what his real name is.
I don't
I
know
don't.
if anyone does.
Okay, you don't even know what his real name is.
We just call him Pan because like we've been calling him that for 12 years now.
Okay. But occasionally I'll look up like a review for like an old obscure video game that I grew up playing. So like one day I looked up the video game Shrek Extra Large. Have you guys played? It was
I think I played one of the Shrek games, but I don't know if it
not.
was called Extra Large.
It came out after the first movie,
The
and it was
the Todd McFarlane game.
yeah, it's the Todd McFarlane one. Yeah, because Todd McFarlane he did character designs for it. It came out on the Xbox originally, and then they re-released or they updated it or whatever, ported it to the GameCube, and that was one of my first ever GameCube games. And it's terrible. Like it is horrible, but like the voice acting is so bad, but it's almost so bad it's good. Like there's some
Mm.
stupid stuff going on. Maybe we should save this for like the video game talk at the end. But there's like a level where like you have
This is a
to
Christopher Nolan movie.
there's a there, there's a level where like you're on old McDonald's farm and he asked Shrek to find his cow for him because at night the cow starts dancing in the middle of the farm and it's waking everybody up. And so you have to wait for nighttime to fall, and then
Mm.
you have to find.
This sounds like an RPG or something.
No, it wishes like you have to find the cow and it's dancing, and the cow like it runs away, and you have to run up to the cow. I'm sorry.
I'm
Ah,
gonna have to look
Like,
this up.
no, you have to run up to the cow and
And do what?
I'm sorry. Okay, you have to run up to the cow and you have to
Don't tell me you
speak up,
gotta
man.
have sex with it. Because if that's the case, then these people need to be fired.
No, you have to run up to the cow and you have to fart in its face, and then the cow.
Oh my.
Them developers, man. What was Shrek wouldn't even do that to a cow, bro. Like that's scandalous.
I'm sorry.
That's out of his territory.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But anyway, that game was terrible, but it's a lot of fun. See, we're out of time already. um, anyway, I was looking up for a video for that, and Pan he did a video on it. He was like the only person that had like a in-depth analysis of that game, and so
Mhm.
that's what introduced me to him. And then I was never the same. I kept watching his other videos and stuff. So yeah. Anyway, um, I'm sorry. That was just. It's just it's you look up that Ryan. Have you played that game?
like years ago, but once I saw that video, it's like a flood of memories just came back, and seeing Tom McFarlane's involvement, I was like, oh, how the mighty have sank.
I mean, the other thing about it, the music in the game is actually really good. Like
Mhm.
surprisingly really good. Like it has a really epic score for the type of game that it is. Um, but yeah, but no, you have a dedicated fart button, and and like you have to eat onions to build up your meter, your gas meter, and Shrek
Mm.
can also belch, and if
What's
he
this
eat
game called?
Shrek extra
Shrek.
large, um, and like
Or just Shrek on the GameCube or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, he could eat bell peppers and he'll belch fire. And what you could do is if you hold down the right trigger, he'll fart and make a fart cloud, and he'll light the cloud on fire with the fart belch,
Shrek
and it'll shoot you up
Extra
in the air. Uh, but anyway, we got to move on. Yes, guys at home, this is the animation episode. As you could tell, all three of us are avid animation followers, animation lovers. I mean, kids grow up watching cartoons, but like, as you get older, your tastes change and whatnot. And yet we still get more cartoons that are, aged up a little bit, maybe a little edgier, maybe a more maturely written or whatnot. And then now we have, we are living in the golden age of adult animation where like it's not just Family Guy or The Simpsons where everything's like comedies and whatnot, but now you're getting like action shows, action cartoons, and dramas, sci-fi. So it's a really good time to be alive when it comes to watching animation and whatnot. But Ryan, the other reason why I was excited to have you on is because and there was something that I brought up in one of our earlier episodes, and I had a lot of fun talking about it, and I wanted to bring it up again, but like I knew we were going to have you on at one point, so I didn't want to keep beating the dead horse. But Ryan, you absolutely grew up watching VeggieTales, didn't you?
Absolutely.
Were you like an avid, like were you like as in love with VeggieTales as I was? That like your thing? Like for me, I explained in an earlier episode that like the veggies, they're like how I feel about the Muppets or Looney Tunes. That's how I feel about like Larry the Cucumber and Bob the Tomato and Mr. Lunt and all that. Like, do you feel the same way?
That's a good way of putting it, because
Mm.
it's such a because watching those, because the thing is, I wasn't even raised Christian.
Uh,
I wasn't even raised Christian, but the reason like you would get video cassettes of VeggieTales is because it was everywhere, and they were easy to find, and more importantly, when I would watch them, they were funny, they were
uh,
well written. I
yeah,
would I would enjoy myself even with no matter what overtones or undertones they would do. It was always just a lot of fun, and they continued that for so long. And
yeah.
and speaking of Saber Spark, that was like one of the biggest videos I ever helped him with, was his VeggieTales video, which Phil Vischer, the creator of the show and the voice of Bob and half the characters, reached out to
Yeah.
him to give insight to put into the video, and that was an amazing video to work on.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was also like a feature length video too, wasn't it? It was like over an hour and 15 minutes, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, like 66 minutes, pretty much. It was like,
it's a long video, but like it flew by because it was so. Because honestly, like you'd be surprised how little retrospective VeggieTales content there is on YouTube. There's a little bit more now, but like everyone, all the kids that grew up watching it, they're all adults now. They're all our age. And I know that
mhm.
like you and I are not the only ones nostalgic for it. So like I'm wondering why. I mean, I guess it makes sense now why we're just now getting more people, analysis videos, and there's videos talking about like the theology behind VeggieTales
Yeah,
and all that and everything. It's fascinating stuff. But the thing is, the show is actually, like you said, genuinely good, which is
yeah,
why it was able to reach beyond just a Christian audience and whatnot. I mean, obviously, I grew up in a Christian household. And went to private Christian school and everything, so like VeggieTales was everywhere. But it stuck with me because like the other faith-based cartoons or shows or whatever that were around at the time, they're all terrible. Most of them were pretty terrible. um
yeah.
but I mean, just the story of Phil Vischer and Mike Naraki is just how like they were two college kids, and they decided they wanted to make something like this, and they didn't know anything about animation or anything, and yet they found a way to do it, pull whatever resources together, and they found a way to make it work, and it actually did work, and that's all it's I mean it's the story of what we've been talking about on our show, the catch up, but just how like with all our guests that we bring in and everything, like everyone's trying to find a way to pull together whatever they can to bring their strengths together, as whether it be writing, directing, acting, or whatnot, and just show the world what we are capable of doing, and hoping it opens a door for us to enter into the entertainment industry or whatever, or just express ourselves. So I mean, VeggieTales is an example of a successful example of that happening, which is probably part of the reason why I'm so I don't know, nostalgic for it or drawn to it or whatnot. But I mean, other than that, like you said, the show is like really good. Do you have like a favorite character from the show?
I mean, everyone loves Larry. It's hard to beat Larry.
Yeah.
But also, I do love Archibald because of how uptight he can get, and also how it is almost because that show also has like a blatant Monty Python influence for certain characters, like
clearly, yes.
But with the French peas are just just doing that John Cleese type French accent. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude, what are you doing?
What do you think? I'm filming the movie.
Oh, to sell on the eBay, no?
What kind of pea do you take me for? This is for Cousin Josephine in Paris. They do not show the journal there.
Ah, Cousin Josephine. She works in that patisserie in the Rue d'Anjou.
Oui, how I remember those eclairs.
Ah, and the truffles?
The little chocolate truffles.
Oh.
Your words, Philippe. Bring a tear to my eye.
I'm so sorry.
Surrender your camera, sir.
Never!
Stand firm, Jean-Claude! Stand
Cease
firm!
your illegal videotaping,
Throw your
sir.
popcorn in his general direction!
Take this, you buttery brute!
Sir,
Come on!
unhand your camera.
He does not have hands, you unobservant theater assistant!
Succumb, sir.
Remember the Bastille, Jean-Claude!
Succumb.
I stick jujubes in your ears!
Yes, and they'll resonate for you, my friend!
Yeah. Dameon, I mean, you did watch the show, right? Do you remember? Or are you just looking at us like we're crazy? Like,
nah, I watch VeggieTales a lot, but I when you said Archibald, I'm trying to memorize the characters' names. I remember
Archibald
Asparagus.
Archibald Asparagus. He had the monocle. He was Jonah in the Jonah movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
You saying
can't
Asparagus
remember.
look alike? You can't tell them apart.
Yeah, he's not Dad Asparagus, because there's also Dad Asparagus, who's
And
Junior's
Junior.
dad. Junior Asparagus.
I just remember watching it at the house because we did have it on VHS, and on Sunday school we used to watch it as well. So, and I used to just love it. I loved it. I just loved it. For some reason, I loved it so much that I wanted to eat them.
What?
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's one reason why it worked so well, because it made kids love the vegetables. Like, they look tasty. It was 3D. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it's funny how you say that the animation is actually really good, especially considering. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, that's the first straight to video like CG product like ever, like in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, because like
93, 1 year before reboot, 2 years before Toy Story.
Okay, yeah. And then how does it relate to that music video on MTV that was CG? I don't remember which band it was. Do you know what I'm talking about? That was like the first CG music video.
Yeah, the money for nothing.
Okay, yeah. Was that around the same time or?
Well, that was the 80s. That was like years prior. But
okay, all right.
But I know. I think the people who did like the money for nothing animation, like they would go on to work on a reboot, because I remember there's a reboot episode where the money for nothing guys made a cameo.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty funny.
Yeah. Although like you can tell it's early 90s. Like if you go back to that first episode, was it Where's God If I'm Scared, or Where's God When I'm Scared?
Yeah.
It is kind of freaky looking, because like you see Junior's and eyes are like bulging out of his skulls at different points, and like I think it's because there's a part where Bob, Larry are in Junior's a bedroom, which is kind of creepy because they're both like grown folks like in this little boy's bedroom. But they're like singing, was it God is bigger than the
He's bigger
boogeyman?
than the boogeyman.
Yeah. But like
Bigger
they
than
didn't.
Godzilla or the monsters on TV.
God is bigger than the boogeyman, and he's watching out for you and me. He's watching out for you and me. Watching. Out for you and
I guess the animators didn't know what to have them do, so they're just kind of bouncing around instead of like dancing. And then
Yeah.
there's a part where the Bible story where I think it was David in the lion's den, and
Yeah.
the scallions, they're singing, oh no, what we gonna do? The king
What
likes
we
David
gonna
more
do?
than
King
you
likes
and me.
Daniel more than me, you.
Daniel in the lion's den. That if you go back and look at that, that's pretty creepy, because the animation's like really weird, and they're like bouncing around and stretching kind of unnaturally. So I mean,
I'm gonna have to check some of this out once we get off.
there's definitely some growing pains, but like over the course of the show continuing on, especially into the late 90s, the animation got like really good. By the time they get to like Larry Boy, you look at the stark difference between the first Larry Boy episode and the second Larry Boy episode, the bump in quality.
Yeah.
As far as like, and I think in the first one, the characters don't even have clothes. But then in the second
They
one,
don't.
the second one, Larry Boy and the Rumor Weed, they all have like unique outfits. There's like a lot more detail in the street and everything, and just the textures and everything. It's still like early or late 90s at that point, but it looks like really good. And then you look at like the early 2000s, what they were able to do. It's gorgeous. Like it's for like, again, it's impressive, not just for like a faith-based show, but just just in general, just for CG, straight to DVD, straight to video CG. Like it's pretty good. The other thing about the show that I liked was just there's like a meta narrative going on where like all the vegetables, they're like actors basically putting on like a variety show.
Yeah.
And so, like, you have the beginning where Bob and Larry are on the kitchen countertop, and they'll introduce whatever the topic is for the episode. And then, you have the other veggies, coming in and playing their roles or whatever. But then there's like stuff going on. And it was very much like the Muppets, or like there's stuff going on in the background that if you pay attention to, it'll carry on between episodes. Do you remember when Larry had like an existential crisis because of the silly songs? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because he got replaced by Mr. Lentz.
previous city boy is riding with that. No wait.
This is quite disappointing.
No.
Management has decided all the performers got your cheeseburger, and now me cheeseburger. Silly songs. Until further notice, silly songs is
Hey, mister! You okay?
Wait, Dameon, do you remember any of this?
Hell no. I don't remember the episode.
We will teach you the ways of veggie lore.
I remember watching VeggieTales a lot, but I don't think any of it stuck to me. Like say Courage the Cowardly Dog, or Ed, Edd n Eddy, or something like that. Powerpuffs.
They're just Cartoon Network in general.
I mean, like basically, each episode you have this is silly songs with Larry, where Larry comes out and sings a silly song, and like Larry, he'll sing a song like "Where's My Hairbrush" or "Barbara Manatee" or "The Dance of the Cucumber" or whatever. But there was like one episode where he was singing the song of the Cebu, and it was supposed to be this big, multimedia event, and it goes wrong for some reason, and Archibald like comes in and says, "No, this is wrong. Like we're gonna get canceled. You can't do this. Like we can't have silly songs if it's gonna be like this." And then like in the next episode, Larry gets replaced by Mr. Lunt, who sings a love song about a cheeseburger, which is like one of their best songs, his cheeseburger. And because Larry got replaced in the next episode, which was like a compilation, it was basically like a compilation of silly songs. But there was a meta narrative of Larry sitting in a diner having an existential crisis because his show got canceled. And like it has him in a diner, and it's like a dark and stormy night, and he's literally like sitting in the booth freaking out, like crying the entire time because his show got canceled. And like for I don't know, for like a silly show about like cucumbers, like it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird like how far they took that. I don't know. Like Ryan, did that have like a impact on you, or like or a
Yeah, like the whole meta stuff, or sometimes where they will reference like like adult things. Like I think it was like in the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, like during that song where he says, "Oh, it's time for Geraldo." My 5-year-old self is like, "What's a Geraldo?"
I don't know. It was just kind of just stuff like that where like
Yeah.
and just the humor, the way where like there's one where like they're in Junior's room and they say like, "What are you gonna do if there's a burglar that comes into your house?" And Junior says, "I'm gonna call the police." And it was just something like very smart alecky about the way he says it.
Nah, I'm gonna shoot him.
It's just I don't know. The show is good. I appreciate any opportunity to go back and reflect on that time watching that show. But I guess we could move on. It looks like Dameon's about to fall asleep. All right. Okay, before we move on into the actual first segment of this show, just the last thing I wanted to ask you, Ryan, and then we could go around in a circle. Well, Ryan, you asked Junk Food Cinema to review Follow That Bird, which is their Sesame Street movie.
Yes.
Can we, because you're like a big fan of the Muppets as well, right?
It's time to get things started on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, motivational. This is what we call the Muppet Show.
Yes.
Okay, Dameon, are you like a big like Muppet person?
I watched Sesame Street. Does that count?
I mean, it counts. But like not like the Kermit,
not religiously,
the Muppet Show, or because I mean I was gonna ask like if we could like share like what are our favorite Muppet movies. Which one is your favorite Muppet movie?
I don't think I saw any of the Muppet movies.
Really?
None.
Not even like the Disney
I told
ones?
you my life was surrounded by Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney Channel as I got a little bit older.
I mean, they were on Disney Channel because there was always that close association between the Muppets and Disney. Like, remember they had those specials? It was like the D23 something special where like
the Studio DC.
Yeah, that was it. Where it was all the Disney Channel stars just hanging out with the Muppets, and it was pretty cool.
Oh, okay. I remember those little segments.
Well, okay. Well, Ryan, what's your favorite?
But not the movie.
What's your favorite movie?
The movies, like I mean, the original is like the original Muppet movie is a certified classic, but the Great Muppet Caper I've always considered probably the funniest because it's the one I quote the most.
I like honestly. because I grew up watching the Muppets and everything, and I had seen the movies. My first time actually seeing the first Muppet movie and Caper in full was when they were put on Disney Plus. Because I remember seeing all those like in
Wow.
parts. I think part of it is because both of those are like the oldest ones, and so they weren't always on like the channels or whatever that I was watching at the time.
Yeah.
I like both of those. I think I like Caper a little bit more than the first one, just because like the plot is a little more cohesive, and I think they do a better job with the guest stars. Because like what the first one, most of the guest stars in the first movie, they just show up just to be like, "Hey, it's me." Like, what's his name? Who's the what's his name?
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor. Yeah. Like Richard Pryor, he shows up and he doesn't do anything. He just gives Gonzo a balloon, and that's it. And then he disappears. But the second one, the Caper, I think they do a better job using those the celebrity cameos. And also it has like a really epic synchronized swimming scene with Miss Piggy. It's actually really impressive because like the entire time you see her whole body, but you don't see. It's like, how did they film that? Because you don't see any wires or whatever the puppeteers holding her up or anything. It's like it's really impressive, especially for like the 80s. The only thing I would say is like at the end of the movie, Miss Piggy, she's like riding a motorcycle, and like you get the close-up shots of her, the puppet on a motorcycle. But whenever there's a wide shot, it's clearly like a grown man wearing a piggy mask, riding a motorcycle. It is really creepy. But my favorite Muppet movie is actually Muppets Take Manhattan. Muppets Take Manhattan. That's the third one, right?
Yeah.
That one's probably my favorite just because like that's the one I grew up watching the most, and I think it has probably the best story for me. And it's the songs that I could quote the most. It has like the most classic songs for me. Like, I mean, every one of them is like a banger. Like you have the Together Again, together again, and then you have that sad song where they're breaking up and they're like saying goodbye, going away, and then where they're all, I think they're trying to find rent or like a place to stay. They're going around the city to find like a rental property to stay, and like Dr. Teeth is singing like "Don't Take a No for an Answer," and you get like that weird shot, that creepy shot where you see all their legs walking down the street. It looks really weird whenever you see Muppet legs, because you see like Kermit's little legs and you see Gonzo's little shoes like walking down. It looks really weird.
In the first two movies, you see them on bikes.
Yeah, you see them on bikes. But the thing that solidifies Take Manhattan for me is the ending. Like the ending always, like, it doesn't matter how like old I get, like the ending always makes me cry. Just because it ends with they put on a show. They put on a play, and at the end of the play, Kermit and Miss Piggy get married, and like it starts off like as a play where like you're watching it, from the fourth wall, but then like the camera zooms in and they like forget that it's a play, and it turns into an actual like cathedral, like it turns into an actual wedding, and like the camera pans out and you get this epic shot of like all these Muppets in the pews, and it's not just like a Muppet show Muppets, but you see like the Sesame Street Muppets and everything. So you see like Big Bird and like Elmo and Bert and Ernie and all that. And that song at the end is so wholesome and so sweet. Just the it's just that sentiment is really sweet. So it makes me cry every time I see it. But yeah, no, Dameon, you don't have like a just partial
I have no heartwarming story about those Sesame people, Muppets.
Not even Elmo and
I'm
Grouchland.
so sorry.
El-
Well, I like the way Elmo's voice sound. I always like his voice and how he was like a kid, especially when Mr. Noodle came around.
that was like a grown man in his closet, right?
Oh, I thought it was a box or
well,
something like that.
the window, yeah.
Was he like in a pocket? Was he in like a pocket dimension or something? Because I vaguely remember Elmo's world where yeah. Go ahead.
He
Ryan.
was in something.
No, he would like look through try to get the window to open, and we see Mr. Noodle or Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, just doing whatever, trying to learn how to put on clothes or just trying to learn how to tie a tie or something.
Wait, a grown man trying to learn how to put on clothes? I know I watched Elmo's World.
Why has he got his clothes off in the first place? That's real.
Wait, did you guys watch? Well, I know you watched it, Ryan. Was it Fraggle Rock?
Yeah.
Scares away. Worries for another day. Let the music play. Down at Fraggle Rock. Down at Fraggle Rock.
Down at Fraggle Rock.
Yeah, was it Castaways Away? Worries for another day. Let the music play. Clap, clap. Down at Fraggle Rock. Did you watch that, Dameon?
It's not ringing any bells. I'm trying to think. It's Fraggle Rock. That sounds familiar, but I'm not seeing it in my brain.
Well, I know one that you would probably have grown up with. You said you watched a lot of Disney Channel. You probably grew up with Bear in the Big Blue House.
Oh yeah. On Playhouse Disney.
I remember that one.
Yeah,
that was like
Disney. That was like their staple show for a while.
Yeah. Well, I saw you posted that clip on Twitter, the outtakes from that show.
Yeah, I can't even find like if there's more outtakes that have surfaced, but like that was incredible.
Have you seen? There's a super obscure Muppet movie. Well, it's like a special. It was a Christmas special. I think it was called Muppet Christmas, like Family Christmas or something. Where it was like it was the big crossover between the Muppets, Sesame Street, and Fraggle Rock.
Like the Avengers of Muppet specials.
Yeah. Like they all go to Fozzie's mother's house, and for some reason the Sesame Street gang shows up, and it's connected to the Fraggle dimension or whatever. So the Fraggles show up.
Because Doc and Sprocket, like they wanted to rent the house because they thought Fozzie's mom was going out, but then all the Muppets show up and things change.
Right, yeah, and like the Swedish chef, he's trying to cook Big Bird because he thinks it's the turkey or whatever. As a kid, that always like confused me because the entire time, you're following Doc and Sprocket, so it's like it's the one human, the old human, and at the time I didn't know what Jim Henson looked like. So like at the end of the special, Jim Henson just randomly shows up talking to Sprocket, like he's been there the entire time. And as a kid, I was like, why did they switch actors for Doc? Like, who is this guy? Like, why does he look different? I didn't make the connection in my mind that.
So like you didn't realize Doc was Santa? It was in the Santa suit.
I mean, as a kid, I thought, okay, well, clearly I missed something. Like he's capable of turning into a much skinnier guy, much skinnier white man with a beard. Because like he just shows up randomly, Jim Henson, and he's like talking to the dog like he's been there the entire time. So it's like it was weird. Just as a kid, it blew my mind. But yeah, no. Muppets, VeggieTales, and whatever else we were talking about earlier. Like this is it was good. It was good growing up on these properties. But I think we got to move on because Dameon's getting restless, isn't he? All right, guys, let's move into.
Like I said, man, I'm over here. I'm trying to, man, like.
And
y'all really love the Muppets, huh?
The Muppets. All right, let's move on to the first segment officially, which is animated movies. All right, really quickly, Ryan, did you get scared like at the beginning of the certain Muppet videos? It would open with like a laser shooting down on a black screen, and it'll like etch something as a laser, and the camera would flip, and it would reveal to be Kermit's face. you hear the beep, 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 and like little firefly will go into the Jim Henson name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but for some reason that never bothered me, even though I was noise sensitive at that age.
As a kid, that scared the crap out of me. I don't know why. It was just, and it was at the beginning of every VeggieTales, not VeggieTales, Muppet video. I like how Dameon just gave up, and he's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna like mess around with the settings while they get this out of their system. Like, all right. So
We got some veggie shows in there.
okay, so all right, so we are here to talk about animated movies. We all grew up watching cartoon movies and like forcing our parents to take us to the theater to see these silly cartoons on the big screen. Before we get into the actual like type of animated movies we wanted to talk about for this segment, let's go around and talk about what are some of your like favorite animated movies, like, you know, of all time, like some of your favorites or go-tos or whatever. Dameon, you want to start off?
Well, my favorite movie and my favorite animated movie of all time has to be Incredibles. I love that movie so much. Of course, it's Pixar. Pixar does a very good job at making things for kids, but also keeping, you know, adults interested.
Yeah.
You know, like for example, Incredibles. You know, it's about a man, Bob Parr, who is depressed. He can't be a hero anymore, and that was all he was really good at. And they took that away from him, and his life began to spiral, and he began doing hero work on the side. Meanwhile, his wife thinks he's cheating on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I love that movie so much, dude. I love that movie.
The Brad Bird Pixar movies get better as you get older. So both that and Ratatouille and Incredibles 2. I mean, we saw Incredibles 2 came out when we were all adults. But
Incredibles 2 could have been a perfect movie. But the flaw of that movie was Dash. And
really?
That's all I got to say about. Oh yeah, 100%.
My only problem with Incredibles 2 is the villain was obvious. Like it was obvious.
I saw that coming a mile away.
Because they obviously wanted you to think it was going to be Saul Goodman, Bob Odenkirk's character. They wanted you to think it was going to be him. So clearly it was going to be the sister. But I really liked Incredibles 2 a lot because it was like the first one. It was like it felt like written as a movie first and then a family film second. So like you could watch it as an adult and still get a lot out of it. But the first Incredibles, like as a kid, I didn't know what was going on with the whole insurance thing of like why Bob was what he was doing with that old woman when she was talking about her insurance and everything, and he said, "Okay, you got to pretend like you're crying now." Okay, I didn't know what that was about as a kid, so now I understand. And why he got like chewed out by his boss for doing what he did. I didn't get that, but now that makes sense.
He was secretly helping people,
right? Yeah,
and he was supposed to be taking advantage of them.
Yeah, that, and then as a kid, obviously, I didn't realize that Helen thought that he was having an affair.
I knew that right off the jump. I was like,
I thought she was just mad because he was doing hero stuff. Like literally, that's why she was mad. But no, it's just this very layered, the whole thing where like she catches him hugging Mirage, and Mirage, he's just like, "Oh, you must be Mrs. Incredible," and then she like, punches him in the face.
She was helping me escape. No, that's what I was doing. Let go of me. Let go of me.
Do you remember the outtakes for? Well, Ryan, you probably remember the outtakes on the DVD, the Incredibles DVD for
I got it.
Where the animators, they got like super weird with it, where like there's a scene where Syndrome is talking to Mirage and he's saying like, "You know, I wouldn't let anything happen to you," but in the outtakes he straight up just licks her face.
It's like animation outtakes, or
like it's
animation,
it's unfinished animation, but they just like literally had they had to model his tongue because he like literally straight up just licks her face. And then when Mr. Incredible's vacuuming the living room, they just have him with not wearing any pants. Like they just pixelate.
He's butt naked. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
All right, Ryan, what's your favorite animated movie?
I mean, on the topic of Pixar, the my personal favorite has to be Toy Story. Like Toy
Okay.
Story in general. I mean, probably the original the most because it's the one I watched the most, like almost religiously as a child. But I do
Yeah.
think it's other than just being a technical achievement, I think it is such a perfectly put together film, in
Yeah.
every aspect with story wise, humor wise,
Yeah.
all of it is executed so flawlessly. The same thing with all the sequels. They have that layer of depth to them where they all have a certain theme to them, either about life or friendship and everything like that.
Yeah.
Which is common for most Pixar films, but the way that Toy Story does in a way that's like both incredibly mature, sometimes even thought provoking. But they
Yeah.
also they make it funny and they make it light and they make it accessible for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, Toy Story 2 is my favorite animated movie of all time. I love all the Toy Story movies, but 2, it's you watch that movie and it's like the writers, directors, storyboard artists, whatever, they took every single scene and said, how can we make each and every scene as unique and creative as we possibly can? So something as simple as, the toys jumping off the roof of Andy's house to get down to the ground level, and they grab Slinky's back his hind legs and like use it as a bungee to jump down. Like it's such a simple thing, and yet it's memorable because it's like, man, that's a unique way to make use of what you have, these characters and what their strengths are. Even like the scene where they're crossing the street to get to Al's Toy Barn, and they're all in the cones, and they create like
Yeah.
they literally kill people because they create like all this chaos on the street. That's a scene that disturbed me as a kid because like Mr. Potato Head almost gets run over by that cylinder.
He'd have
That's
been Mr. Mashed Potatoes head.
Yeah, like that scared me as a kid because his like shoe gets caught up on the gum and like he almost gets run over by that thing. Um, but yeah, like every single like scene in that movie is like perfectly well crafted. And again, the story's like really good, and the way they're
Y'all
able
have
to. Well,
Did you have any of the toys?
I had a Buzz Lightyear. I had two. I know it's hard to say this without it sounding crazy, but like I had two Woodies. I
Mm.
had I,
Mm.
I had the actual Woody doll, and then I had another one that was more plasticky that we used as
Okay.
like a ornament. And then I had Mr. Potato Head. It was like the Playhouse, like not the movie brand Mr. Potato Head, but it was like a Playhouse, whatever, Play School or whatever. Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah, something like that.
But I did have, and it was actually a Christmas present, like for Andy in the first movie. I had a, Toy Story 2 brand Mrs. Potato Head. Um,
Mm.
and I had a Rex. It wasn't as big as Rex, but like it was like a smaller Rex. And I had an RC. And I think it was like a McDonald's toy or whatever. So it wasn't actual, like you didn't have the remote control or anything. But I would
McDonald's used to have some fire toys, man.
yeah. So like when I would watch the movies as a kid, I would have my toys out and have them act out the scenes. And I would hate whenever
Mm.
something would happen to Mr. Potato Head because in the movies, his like parts would go flying everywhere. And like you can't do that in real life and like gather all the parts as quickly as he's able to do in the movies. But anyway, did you guys have the toys growing up?
Yeah, I had pretty much all the characters you could think of. I would have them either like as like traditional like store-bought toys, like a traditional Buzz Lightyear action figure, with like laser action and all that. But I would
Mm.
also have like some of the McDonald's toys. Also, probably the oldest Toy Story toys I had were the Burger King toys from '96. I had the wind-up binoculars, which
Oh,
look
cool.
pretty much
Well, I think
which
I
look
had those too. Yeah.
yeah, which look exactly like how they did in the movie. And they also
Yeah.
had a wind up Scud the dog that when you wind it, they would start running.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
What about you, Damien?
You see, I had a Buzz Lightyear, and it was a big one. It was about a foot.
Yeah.
And his wings deployed.
Yeah.
I had a Sully, and an Abominable Snowman from Monsters Inc. I had definitely had a Woody. Uh, I had what's the aliens with the three eyes?
Hmm.
I had one of
Yep.
those. I had the little robot. I had the
LGN.
binocular joint. Um, what else? I'm sure I had a big old bus of toys, dude.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the sad part is I got rid of my toys in like I think it was sixth grade or seventh grade. I was like, I'm becoming an adult. I got to
Aw.
get rid of these.
Toy
And that was
Story
the worst thing I could ever
Yeah.
do, bro. I regret it till this day, man.
Toy Story 3
Seriously, man.
Toy Story 3 made us all regret throwing away toys because you know what happens to them. They end up in the
Yeah.
furnace. Um, I actually still have my Buzz Lightyear. He's in my room.
I don't got
Uh, um,
nothing, dude.
well,
Congratulations.
well, he's old, so like it used to be where he'd be like when you press the button, he's like, but now he doesn't even talk anymore. Like I
Mm.
guess the batteries degraded or whatever. Um, I always wanted to try when the third movie came out, try to open him up on the back and switch him to Spanish mode, see if that works, like in the movie. Um, I also had from the second movie, I had the special Buzz that had the belt, and he had the grappling hook like he does in the second movie. Um, but I always wanted a Zurg because did they actually sell Zurg? I know they sold like Zurg toys, but did they actually have the ones with the gun that shoots tennis balls? Was that actually a
They,
thing?
they probably did.
Uh,
You would just have to like dig deep for them.
the Zurg was my favorite. Um, that was something that disturbed me as a kid. Like at the end, when they were on the elevator and Zurg is fighting Buzz, and he's like beating him up, and like he almost kills. I mean, he wasn't gonna die, but it looked like he was about to kill Buzz. Like as a kid, I was like, no, no, Buzz, got to do something. And then Rex hits him with his tail, and then he has wheels, so he like rolls off the side of the elevator. That was a harrowing experience for me as a kid watching Toy Story 2. But
And Zurg is really who? Courtesy of the Buzz Lightyear movie.
And
that's not not but the
it's
less
like,
said about that the better probably.
I am your father.
um I mean that twist that they did in Lightyear, it could have been better if they developed it more. Like they could have
Mhm.
framed it was perfect because they were framing it as if Buzz, he's straight up, he has a white savior complex the entire time. Because the entire time in the movie, he's talking to the other Rangers saying, like, no, no, I gotta save you. And if you do that, I won't be able to save you. Like it's always like, I have to do this, I have to be the hero and save everybody. And Pixar, they're usually
He has
good
to
at
save all these Native Americans.
well, like
That was his main goal.
well, like Pixar, they're usually really good at picking up on topics like that, and so I'm surprised they didn't go there with that and say like, because Buzz, since you are so obsessed with being the hero, you drive yourself into becoming a villain. And like, I mean, they do kind of do that, but they don't. As soon as old Buzz, Zurg, whatever is introduced, like the movie's almost over. So, but yeah, I mean, anything else about like favorite um, animated movies before we move on into
Wally.
yeah, Wally's great.
When I first saw it, I was not so much into it when I was a young man, but as I watched it, as I got older, and just thinking back to it now, Wally is scary, bro. Like I
It
could see us
is.
being that. You know what I mean? Big on our little reclining chairs, destroying the earth.
um,
Um, And it was so funny because the robots was like, no, we want you to not do anything and let us take care of all the work. He's like,
yeah,
what
yeah,
the?
yeah.
Like, that's bizarre, man.
I just like how the secondary villain in Wally, what Gopher, how he just dies, like he just gets kicked out the window, and you think he's gonna land in the water, but he just like goes splat on the concrete and just dies. That. I mean, Ryan, do you have anything else before we go into?
No, other than this, there's, yeah, I think we're all equal with Pixar movies being our favorites, apparently.
Yes, yes, yes. Which is funny
But
because oh, what?
I was gonna say before we go, I was gonna say the reason why Incredibles 2, why I said Dash was the problem in Incredibles 2, because I feel like they made Dash stupider. Like
Uh,
in the first Incredibles, Dash was a a young man who wanted to use his powers, and he was a fairly intelligent man, well, excuse me, young boy who could articulate himself. Then we get to Incredible 2. He can't even say decimals. He's so childlike. I'm just like, this not the Dash I know. He's just, I feel like they made Dash younger mentally in Incredibles 2. And I
Uh,
didn't like that one bit.
doesn't he have ADHD? Isn't that what was going on with him? And it like manifested in his
Forget all
powers.
that. That was
Probably.
that
I
was
think I think it just
some
it manifested.
hornswoggle.
I think that's the thing, like with his powers, right? Because like it was like
I
the
don't know. I think he
manifestation
just
of.
made that up.
I don't know. I mean, in like there's with Violet, her powers kind of represent like her depression, whatever, where she wishes she could fade into the background, which is why she turns invisible. Um, I don't know. I mean, Dash didn't really bother me, but like I mean, I get what you're saying.
That
Like I
irked
get
me because I when I was a kid, I was like, "Ooh, I want to be fast like Dash.
it.
He's so cool."
um, Dash has a body count. Like in the first movie, doesn't he kill one of the guys that was like chasing him
Yeah.
through the
I
jungle?
mean, yeah,
That's what.
obviously not on purpose, but he does it because I mean it's the first PG Pixar film for a reason.
hmm
um,
I
but
also like that they like before they fought those dudes.
mm.
Mama was like, these people aren't like the people you watch on TV on Saturdays. They will kill you. And like, don't give them that chance. I'm just like, yo, this is real. Let's go. That was the
um,
Incredibles, man.
it's that whole scene where Mr. Incredible's on the computer and he sees that all his friends have gotten killed.
Got
Um,
killed. Like that's
this
cold.
murder.
Yeah.
Ice.
So
Terminated.
um, and it did like I mean he looked up Frozone and he saw that they know where Frozone is. So like
Yeah.
if the thing with Mr. Incredible doesn't work out, Syndrome's gonna go
They
after
was going after
Frozone
him
next.
next. Yeah.
So as a kid, that kind of scared me. I know I was just like I was a scared little kid, but like when the alarm goes off and those bubble guns start shooting at
Yeah.
Mr. Incredible, it looked really weird. Like it was like he was
What a
getting eaten.
great defense mechanism. Bubble
Um,
guns.
I mean, it makes sense. Like you want to weigh him down to stop him.
Mhm.
Like as a kid, it looked really weird because he was like getting swallowed by this
Yeah.
like goop stuff. Um, but but anyway, yes, we all love animated movies here. But I think what all of us can agree, there are certain types of animated movies that are particularly special, especially as a kid if you grow up watching cartoons on television. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter how popular the show is, those shows get a sense of legitimacy if they become popular enough to actually warrant a theatrical film. So, one of the things I thought it would be interesting to talk about is theatrical cartoons that got a theatrical adaptation, in theaters, and uh, how do you go about, creating a TV based off of I'm sorry, a movie based off of a TV show, because you're expanding, the 22 episode format to at least 90 minutes. Do you go big? Do you make it grandiose to legitimize or justify going, to the big screen? But how do you do that while still maintaining the integrity, the heart of what the show is on its own? So that I thought that was something that would be interesting for us to discuss. Now, the first one I wanted to bring up, I want to take us back to, I guess, 2004. And as a kid, I was kind of irked. I was kind of annoyed because, I was, Dameon, you were talking about growing up on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and Disney Channel. I grew up on Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, not so much Cartoon Network until a little bit later. But I was a little annoyed because all these shows were getting movies. Like, Hey Arnold got a movie.
That came out on my birthday.
Hey Arnold got a movie. The Wild Thornberrys, they got a movie. At the time, Rugrats, they got two movies. They eventually got a third one, which was a crossover with the Wild Thornberrys. And then you go to Disney Channel. Of all movies, Teacher's Pet, they got a movie. Recess got a movie. And so I was sitting there thinking, what's going on? Like, when is my favorite cartoon, SpongeBob SquarePants, when is he gonna get a movie? Like, what do I have to do to get that yellow sponge on the big screen? And then in 2004, and I believe I got my timeline right because I remember I was in school, I was in elementary school, and I was talking to my friend Victoria, and she came to school on a Monday after seeing I think it was Shrek 2 in theaters, and she said, "Sean, I saw a poster for the SpongeBob SquarePants movie."
My crown! Someone has stolen the royal crown!
On November 19th,
The fate of Bikini Bottom rests in your hands.
I'm going in.
get ready for big adventure
Let's get it out!
and big surprises
Oh my gosh, you have a mustache!
when Sponge meets World for the very first time.
Who are you?
I'm David Hasselhoff.
Hooray!
The SpongeBob SquarePants movie, rated PG.
And I was in disbelief. I was like, what could it be? The prophecy finally being fulfilled? Are they finally making a movie out of my favorite cartoon of all time? And I didn't believe her. But then I remember I was at my grandma's house and I was watching Nickelodeon. I think it was Nick at Night. I think it was before George Lopez came on. Because, George Lopez, he did dun, 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 right there.
He was always on.
They were jumping in midair. And I saw it. I saw a teaser trailer where they showed a live action Earth and they zoomed in and the narrator said something, finally, our world's greatest hero is, about to save the world. And they show a live action street and you see an animated SpongeBob and Patrick running down the street. And I think SpongeBob, he trips on either like a fry or like a straw or something. And then it just cut to black and it said the SpongeBob SquarePants movie this Thanksgiving. And I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, it's finally happening. I'm finally going to see.
Why couldn't they just say November?
they had to make it an event because it was a momentous occasion. So,
Thanksgiving.
The movie, it came out and I was like, man, I can't wait to go see this in the theaters. And I didn't end up seeing it in the theaters. Like I called her my aunt. I think it was like my godmother. She was going to take me to go see it. And I guess we couldn't get the right screening for it or the right time for it. So we saw Polar Express instead of all movies, which at the time I liked Polar Express. I know it hasn't aged well because it looks terrifying, but so I didn't end up seeing SpongeBob until it came out on DVD. My parents bought me the DVD, and I wore that disc out. I actually have it right here still. And I loved it. It was perfect. And I would argue that when it comes to adapting television shows to the big screen, I would say, I haven't seen all of them, but I would say at least for the ones I had seen, the SpongeBob movie is one of the best examples of how to do it. But before we get into it, what are your guys' experience with this? Were you as excited as I was? Ryan, how about you?
Now that they're men, we cannot bother them.
Now that they're men, they have become our friends. Now that they're men, they'll be happy.
I've got you right where I want you. Name's Dennis.
Of course they're fake. This is what a real mustache looks like. Is he a mermaid? All right, Ryan. Ryan.
Okay. Well, my thoughts on it. I think it is. I thought it was a solid way of taking the show and expanding it into a movie because part of that is because not just because they tried to make the scope bigger or anything like that and they keep the tone of the show, but also you could tell that they were kind of writing this with the intent that this might be the last SpongeBob thing ever made, which turns out it wasn't.
Little did they thought, or little did they know.
Yeah, because when the movie ends and you see there's spoiler alert for this 18-year-old movie, but there's when SpongeBob he gets promoted up to manager. Mm-hmm. Never acknowledged it in the show again. and also the fact that King Neptune is complete. Well, it's completely different from the one in the show.
Yeah, way different.
So canonically, this movie is the final canonical story, I guess you want to call it, in SpongeBob lore. So like all the episodes that have come out since, and even the two other movies that have come out since, they all take place before this movie, which is why there's no Krusty Krab 2, SpongeBob's still a cashier, Plankton still is not in prison, and while Neptune, he's not an old man. But Ryan, like, were you a SpongeBob fan? Were you excited for this movie when it came
No,
out?
yeah, yeah, I was a huge fan. I
Mhm.
didn't see it in the theater, but when I saw the commercials for it and the teasers, which I remember, I distinctly remember the other teaser trailer where they kind of, where they brilliantly like put those clips from The Hunt for Red October and
Exactly.
spliced
Yeah,
them in
yeah,
with
yeah.
new SpongeBob footage.
What's going on, Jonesy?
I can hear. What the hell is it? Splashes.
3,000 yards closing awfully fast.
Mother of God.
Don't you just love playing submarine, Gary? Prepare to dive!
The SpongeBob SquarePants Movie.
Captain, sir, you're never gonna believe this.
And for a second, I thought I heard what? I thought I heard singing, sir.
Yeah.
But then when the movie came out, I watched it on VHS because
Mhm.
yes, I owned video cassettes in 2005. But when I was watching it, it was it didn't feel like just like an extended episode. It felt like they took the time to like make the scope feel a little bigger, make it a little more adventurous, and but they still kept the surreal a lot of the surreal humor, a lot of the stock music, and a lot of the things they did I thought were clever. And although I will say it did feel a little more, it did feel a little like a studio movie at some point with the way like they have to put in the moral for certain things and the way they kept
Mhm.
acknowledging the way. And I used to be a little confused the way they were referring to SpongeBob and Patrick as kids. Although I get
Mhm.
why they did it
Mm-hmm.
just to make for the sake of the story. But
Yeah.
other than that, the film shares like all the strengths that you would expect out of an expanded SpongeBob adventure with the way the comedy is executed, where there's either all the extreme close-ups or certain lines, or they would go all out with just the surrealness of certain scenes,
Yeah.
like when SpongeBob and Patrick get quote unquote wasted in the ice cream bar.
Yeah. It's like, waiter.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a guy. He's like, "Why do I get all the nuts?" um, and then they start singing on stage. And he's like, "It's a little ditty called Waiter," and the guy's playing the piano. Damien, what about you? Were you? Uh,
Man, I think out of all the I think because I am one of those SpongeBob enthusiasts. That is definitely my childhood cartoon. I got the first 100 episodes.
yeah, me too.
And I think they did a great job of adapting that cartoon into a movie. There's so many good moments. I think one way you can tell a good movie is the moments. Some movies there's like one or two good moments, but there's
Mhm.
so many good moments in that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
He thinks he's about to get promoted, and he's like, nope. And he's just butthurt like that. He's screaming at people in that song.
Literally butthurt in Patrick's case.
Yeah.
um,
I just think there was just so many great moments throughout that whole movie. And I forgot Jessica Alba plays the princess.
no, it's
No, it's
Scarlet.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. That's what I
Scarlett
meant. That's what I
Johansson.
meant. That's what I meant. Scarlett. Yeah, man. There's so many good moments. So many good moments in that movie. The other cartoon movies, they really like just went over my head. I'm like, nothing can compare to this first one.
Uh,
So why even bother? Even
Yeah.
that newer one with this camp, I'm like,
Oh.
man, get that out of here. I don't want to see that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, Ryan, like you said, just the way they expand the TV show format for this movie, it's done perfectly. And I mean, the show was huge success. Those first 3 seasons of SpongeBob, I still think are amazing. Like every single episode in those is incredible. Of the first 3 seasons, I would say, like it's perfect. Like if you want to write comedy, that's like the gold standard as far as like animated comedy. Um, and the movie, like you said, they intended this to be the series finale, so they went all out with it. What I love about it is how the animation is a little bit different from the show. Where like you could look at a still from the movie and look at a still from the show and tell the difference. Where like the color palette is a little bit darker, a little bit edgier, a little more cinematic.
I need to get the DVD. I don't even have that.
Yeah, like I like how it starts off in, the familiar environment. They start off in, Bikini Bottom, so you get to see the cinematic version of Bikini Bottom. But then, like most of these animated cartoon movies, they end up going on a big, road trip. So I mean, the plot of the movie.
Burger.
the what's it called?
Wagon.
The paddy wagon, yeah. Basically, the plot of the movie, like you said, SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs is opening up a second Krusty Krab, the Krusty Krab 2, like
and it's like right down the street, yeah,
right next door, literally next door to the first one, and SpongeBob thinks that he's going to be promoted to manager of it, and then he ends up not getting the promotion because everyone thinks he's a kid, even though he's like a grown man in his like 30s. But meanwhile, Plankton hatches his latest plan, his final Hail Mary to, steal the Krabby Patty secret formula and take over the world. And he actually succeeds because he steals the crown of King Neptune and frames Mr. Krabs for it. And so now SpongeBob and Patrick have to go on an epic journey to the dangerous Shell City to get the crown back before Mr. Krabs is put to death. And as far as like, scope, expanding the show beyond, or expanding the world beyond the scope of the show, I like how the animation, like the closer they get to Shell City, which is an actual, live action location, the animation gets a little more realistic, like photorealistic. Like when they're on the road, to the place, like the background gets a little more realistic. The color palette, you see like kind of the reflections of the sunlight reflected on the ground and everything, and like the creatures that they encounter become a little more surreal, which is cool. I like how they push, as far as like, Plankton, like he's at his most evil at this point, where he's like straight up like he hires an assassin to kill SpongeBob and Patrick. Like he's at his most heinous, which again, since this was considered the final, the finale, you want to push, the boundaries of what you're capable of doing. Like this is the culmination of everything that we have seen. Even though it's a comedy or whatever, it's still, you're pushing things to its limit. So I like that. There's actual stakes to it. But at the same time, like the comedy is still in line with stuff you would get in the show. The movie's incredibly quotable. Like there was a time where like I memorized this entire film. Like just even the beginning where it's the live action, the pirate ship, and you see the guy on the dinghy, and he's like, I got it, and the all the pirates, they're like, dinghy on the port bow, dinghy on the port bow. And then there's the one guy where he's like knocking on the captain's door, and he's like, Captain, dinghy on, the door's open, and like smacks him in the head.
Dinghy off the port bow! Dinghy off the port bow! Dinghy off the port bow!
That still gets me. I like the when Mr. Krabs gets like set on fire, and he's like, me pants are on fire, me underwear is on fire, I'm on fire. The biggest laugh that I got the most recent time I watched it was because like the whole time in the beginning, SpongeBob's saying like, "I'm ready, promotion. I'm ready, promotion." But then like when he doesn't get the promotion, like Mr. Krabs asks him like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like walking home, and he says, "I'm ready, depression. I'm
Depression.
ready." And it's all pitiful, and like he's walking into the sunset. I don't know why that got me this time as a this most recent time I watched it, but like uh,
Looks
that
like we got ourselves a double baby.
what was it? Is like all bubble blowing babies will be beaten senseless by all able-bodied patrons in the bar. Um, um,
Exactly.
so also this movie, and I'm not being hyperbolic or facetious when I say this, this movie has a couple scenes that legitimately traumatized me as a kid. uh, there's a part where so like Plankton, he gets the Krabby Patty formula, and he starts selling Krabby Patties at the Chum Bucket, and he's handing out Chum Bucket helmets, to everybody. And Squidward figures out what's going on, and he confronts Plankton about it, and he tells him like an idiot. He says like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell," and then Plankton, he like presses a button, and it activates the mind control component
Mm-hmm.
of the helmet, and so like
Smashes his head.
everyone turns into like zombies. And there's like such a abrupt tonal shift. Like you see
Yeah.
all the like you see Mrs. Puff get the helmet, and like Larry, and you see a baby put on the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's a part where like everyone stands up, and the color palette gets like super dark, and they start
Yeah.
chasing Squidward, and he tries to leave, and his exit's cut off, and he gets cornered. And he's like freaking out, like he's like legitimately like screaming, like he is terrified.
What's going on here? Seize him, slaves! Get out of here! Who can stop me now?
And as a kid, like that really got to me, because it was like, you're used to watching the show, and like Squidward, he's like, yelling all the time. But here, it's not like a comedic yell. Like he's like literally,
Screaming for his life.
he's terrified. And like you see like the hands reaching out for him. I don't know. That really like struck me as a kid. Um, and the other one is towards the end of the movie, where they get to Shell City, and like they get captured by the Cyclops, which is just like a live action dude in a what, marine diving uniform or whatever. What's the guy
Probably
from?
David Hasselhoff.
Who's the
David
guy from?
Hasselhoff.
No. It wasn't David Hasselhoff. It was the.
No, I'm saying it's probably him in that suit. Maybe I'm just messing
Oh well,
around.
it's not. Yeah.
It's who's the villain from Scooby Doo that looks like that? Was it not Miner 49er? Who's
Seth Green. Oh,
no, Ryan, you know who I'm talking about. There's the Scooby Doo villain
Yeah,
that has
the scuba diver. What's his
the
oh,
the ghost of Captain Cutler. There.
Okay, yeah. All right, so the Cyclops captures SpongeBob and Patrick and takes them to Shell City, which is actually a gift shop, a beachfront gift shop. And you see all these dead sea critters, and you realize the Cyclops is killing sea animals and turning them into knickknacks to sell at a cheap price. And I like where he has the clam, and SpongeBob's like, what, glue? Googly eyes? Alexander Clam Bell. And he's just and Mr. Puff is up there too. You see the dead pufferfish. But there's a part where like he takes SpongeBob and Patrick and puts them under this like the desk with the heat lamp, and they're like drying up, and like SpongeBob and Patrick, they legitimately die. Like they just straight up die. And Dameon, do you know you're on mute?
oh damn.
Okay, so they straight up like get killed. And like I don't know if you guys had the same reaction, but like for me, I was like 8 at the time, and so like my childhood hero, my
I was
childhood,
balling. I was crying.
I was like, I was so sad. It legitimately bothered me as a kid, because it's like my favorite cartoon character is dead now. And I mean, Ryan, did you have like a similar like experience for that?
Not exactly. Not until they got to the pirates watching the movie, and they were emotionally invested too. It's the tear of the Goofy Goober.
And then the bird flies in and says,
And
"Shut
the
up and look at the
tear
screen."
of joy brought them back to life.
Well, that's
The
the thing.
heart tear.
That's the thing about the scene, especially watching it as an adult, like the contentment that they have in that scene, because everyone says they're kids, there's no way they're gonna make it all the way to Shell City. And then they
But
find
they
out, no,
made it.
we actually made it. We made it further than anybody else, and we actually got the crown. We didn't succeed, but we actually, by being who we are, we actually did what we were supposed to do. And so while they're drying up, they're like, singing the Goofy
Their
Goober
final
song.
words. Goofy Goober.
Yeah.
And just
but like,
dissolve, bro. Woo.
but like it's their contentment that ends up saving them, because it's that tear, and then that goes down the power line and causes the electric outage or whatever.
Yeah.
But
brings
no, like
everybody back to life.
it brings everybody back, including the mariachi, mariachi fish.
Then they beat the crap out of
Cyclops. That was an impactful scene. As far as like a climax to like the series or whatever, like that was very impactful. Honestly, guys, like the next time that has happened to me, I hadn't had that kind of reaction to like characters dying or potentially dying. The next time that happened to me was Toy Story 3 when they're in the furnace. Like it gave me that same gut feeling, like you see all these characters like they're about to go down into the fire, and then they're like holding hands and like embracing death. So I don't know, maybe I was just like too emotionally invested in SpongeBob, but like but real quick before we wrap it up, the third act of this movie is the most insane, surreal thing I've ever seen in my life. As a kid, it was stuff that like I think we just like accepted because we were kids. But watching it as an adult, it's like, what were they on? What was Steven Hillenburg on when he was like writing this? Because like they're on the beach, they get the crown, and they're trying to get back to Bikini Bottom. And at first, they're going to use the magical bag of winds that Mindy gave them.
The bag of winds.
There's that joke.
That in itself is a joke, bro. The bag of winds.
But there's that joke where like he's like Sponge or Patrick, do you still have the magical bag of winds? And he like turns around. You see the lump in his pants, and then he like takes out the sack, and so it's like did he just like take a dump in his pants?
And SpongeBob gives him a look too.
But the bag flies away, and so they're like, oh no, how are we gonna get to Bikini Bottom? How are we gonna get back home now? And out of nowhere, David Hasselhoff comes out of nowhere.
Running. And his what's the movie called?
Baywatch. It was the Baywatch show, which the audience, we had no idea. Well, I had no idea who David Hasselhoff was. This was my introduction to that guy, to that actor. It introduced an entire generation to that actor. But well, I don't know, Ryan, did you know who David Hasselhoff was? Was he in?
I did have Baywatch reruns in the background. I think it was like one of the stations. So I think I did recognize him, but I didn't like fully get like, well, why was he there? But it's like when you watch it, oh, now I get it.
But like, I guess he has nothing better to do because he says he could take them home to Bikini Bottom. So he legitimately starts swimming down the ocean. Like the first shot is him like swimming, and they're like riding on his back. And then the next time you see him, he has his like arms outstretched behind
like a motor,
like a boat. And he's like flying through the
They imply he's like half metal.
Do you know they created like a 20-foot David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Do that
to film on. Like they built a giant replica of David Hasselhoff so they could film on his like. There's like a shot in the behind the scenes footage of a bunch of guys. A bunch of workers, they're carrying his leg, like his the replica of his leg, so they could film on it. There's, for whatever reason, the assassin Dennis, he shows up on the back of David Hasselhoff. He just randomly shows up again, and they have this huge like fight scene on the back of David Hasselhoff's legs. It's like they're on a train or something, and there's a point where Dennis, he like stabs his like butt cheek, and David's like, "Ooh, take it easy there, fella." And then like with Dennis, like I guess he like straight up dies because like he like gets hit by under a barge. Like he gets hit. In
See ya.
But no, like you said, they get to the island, the Bikini Bottom Island, whatever, and they're like, "We'll never float down in time." And then David, he like stands up in the middle of the ocean,
in the water.
and his chest like shoots out and like
Separates.
separates.
Puts him in there and squeezes.
And they're like, "Did you see that?" And he's like, "The control," and he like
Yeah,
puts
the control.
and he puts the crown and SpongeBob and Patrick between his like pecs and starts squeezing.
And just torpedoes him down there.
Just in time to save Mr. Krabs from getting executed by King Neptune. But then you get like the actual
Hilarious, bro.
You get the climax.
Oh my goodness.
The climax of the movie where it looks like they saved the day, but Plankton, he has like a giant king-sized bucket helmet that he drops on King Neptune's head, and so King Neptune's now a zombie, and so SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mindy, they're cornered. The writers, they literally wrote themselves into a corner, and so I don't know how they came up with this, but they said, how they're going to get out of this? We're going to have SpongeBob sing Twisted. We're going to have SpongeBob sing Dee Snider, Twisted Sister. It's a parody of I Want to Rock. He's singing, I'm a goofy goober, rock.
But most of all,
Hey, settle down. Take it easy. What the scallop? I'm a goofy goober. You're a goofy goober. We're all goofy goobers. Goofy, goofy, goober, goober.
And he he sings so hard that he turns into a music wizard and starts flying in the air and starts shooting. He plays the guitar so good that it starts breaking the chum bucket helmets, which I guess
in that guitar scene, like they cut to like a
live
human
action
person's hands.
Yeah, the live action guy doing I like the part where he's like, well, the kid inside will set you free, and he's like, I've been lipping. His like tongue goes out, and he starts doing the scat.
Even
scatting.
Patrick in his fishnets, man, that's hilarious.
Do you remember parents got mad at that because Patrick was wearing the fishnets? Like a bunch of parents got mad. They said they didn't want their kids watching this movie because of that.
Really?
It was too
risque.
risque.
Got over it fast.
So yeah, no, SpongeBob saves the day through the power of rock. Plankton says like his chops are too righteous. The helmets can't handle this level of rock and roll. And that's it. That's how the movie ends.
But Plankton gets trampled with that hilarious scream that he does.
Yeah, he goes.
That actor who plays Plankton his voice is so funny.
Mr. Lawrence. The guy, he's like, look, it's the wizard that saved us, and then they just trample Plankton. But no, they have the lesson at the end that SpongeBob, he accepts who he is. He's a kid, quote unquote. He's basically like Pee Wee Herman. He's like a grown man, but he has like the mindset of a kid, like a youthful mindset.
That's a good way to put it.
But he accepts who he is, and it's because of who he is. That's how he was able to save the day. And he becomes manager. He jumps up in the air, and they do that freeze frame. They play Ocean Man by Ween.
Ocean Man.
Yeah. And that's, if that were the actual end of the series, that's like the perfect way to end SpongeBob. Like I absolutely adore this movie. Like everything about it I think is perfect as far as, again, adapting the cartoon to the movie format. Endlessly quotable. Like we didn't even talk about the bald, my eyes, and they do it twice. There's like one guy in the back.
And he's like,
says,
stop it,
bald. And then the where SpongeBob's like on the he's giving a speech, and Mr. Krabs is talking to him, and he's like I'm making a complete what of myself, self. The most embarrassing thing you have ever seen. And now it's worse because I'm repeating everything you said into the microphone, phone. And like you said, Dameon, the other two SpongeBob movies that have come out since haven't been able to live up to this. Like they
Not
tried,
at all.
but this was like the perfect way to do it. But yeah, no, we've been talking about it for a while. Anything else about the SpongeBob movie before we move on to any last thoughts,
I got none.
Ryan?
Uh, I mean, if you want to bring up like the other two, quick thoughts. Second one, really, I actually really like
Okay.
the second one, Sponge Out of Water, a lot because I think it does take like even more advantage of like various mediums and the surrealism. And I think because that has Hillenberg involvement, it
Mm-hmm.
has probably like even a closer tone to something of the first three seasons. Then the third one, Sponge on the Run, not nearly as good as the other two, but you know it has its moments, even though stuff like all the Camp Coral stuff was pretty unnecessary and kind of awkwardly placed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, as far as like Sponge on the Water or Sponge Out of Water, the second movie, what I like about it was they advertised it as being primarily CG. And I thought the 2D segments would just be at the beginning and at the end, but actually like 2/3 of it are actually like traditional animation, which I appreciated because I wasn't able to see the first movie in theaters. So this was like redemption for me. I was actually able to see this on the big screen.
Same.
But this is one where it actually just, unlike the first movie, it actually felt justified being in theaters. The second one to me just felt like 3 episodes, strewn together, which I mean, better than what the show was putting out at the time, I would say. But going back and watching it, especially after rewatching the first movie, I would say the second one doesn't really hit as far as me. It's kind of there. It's like there's a lot of scenes that kind of just play out. There's some funny stuff. Like I really like how SpongeBob teams up with Plankton in this one, at least for like a part of the movie, because that's kind of what you want to do, where you have the villain for the first movie, and the second one you want to have the hero and the villain actually team up. And I'm glad they were able to do that and get some mild character development for Plankton in as far as that goes. But mostly for me, it was just kind of there. It's not terrible, but it's like, it's whatever. The third one, I think I actually like a little bit better, mainly because the animation, since they go fully into being a CG movie, the animation is gorgeous. And was it Sponge on the Run? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
But again, it didn't. I enjoyed watching it, but more of I grew up watching SpongeBob, so like I'm willing to watch whatever. But it wasn't anything I would go back to watching. I do like, I would say of all the actors, Squidward with Roger Bumpus, he actually really brings it. Like they always bring it, but like there's a point where Squidward's talking about like how despite being annoyed by SpongeBob, like he still cares about him and he doesn't want to see SpongeBob actually get hurt. And like it's a very sincere moment. It's a small moment in the movie, but like that's like one thing that stood out to me, I would say. But neither one of the two are as good as the first one. And honestly, at this point, like I don't expect anything they come out with since to be as good as those first 3 seasons or the movie. But those first 3 seasons in the movie, they're there. So at least when I have kids, I'll show them that the good stuff, and it'll be good. It's like when my parents showed me the Flintstones or Scooby-Doo or whatever, just paying it forward to the next generation. So but yeah, was there anything else you guys before we can
For
move
me,
on to
2 and 3 were forgettable, so I can't even.
yeah. Okay, yeah, well, that's it for SpongeBob. I'm gonna take a back seat because I have not seen this next movie. So I wasn't really a Cartoon Network kid. I watched a little bit of it in the 90s. I remember watching a little bit of Dexter's Lab, and I think I watched a little bit of the Powerpuff Girls, but like not enough for them to stick to me. So when the Powerpuff Girls movie came out in the early 2000s, was it 2001? It had to be 2001. 2002. Okay. When that came out, I distinctly remember, seeing the trailers for it on TV. It was another reason why I was annoyed with not getting a SpongeBob movie at the time, because Powerpuff Girls, they got a movie. So I am very far removed from this. So Ryan, how about you take the wheel as far as the Powerpuff Girls movie goes?
It's not important where it happened. It's not important when it happened. It's not even important how it happened. What is important is it happened.
Hi, what's your name?
Cartoon Network presents Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup in the Powerpuff Girls movie. 3 mutant superheroes saving the world before bedtime.
You dare to challenge me?
Only on the big screen, July 3rd.
This is so cool.
Okay. Well, the Powerpuff Girls movie, this was the very first time, and technically still the only time, that Cartoon Network has ever produced a theatrically released feature film off of one of their original shows. And no, the Aqua Teen movie and the Teen Titans Go movie do not count. So the way that this movie goes about is it sets itself up as being what is actually a kind of a very clever idea to make it more adjustable for general audiences. It's a prequel, an origin story, if you will. It shows how the girls came to be. So it starts, showing the Professor Utonium with sugar, spice, everything nice, and then an accidental dose of Chemical X. And you see how it brings the girls as to how they are, and you see them trying to adjust into Townsville, but because of their super strength and how much accidental destruction they cause, they end up becoming a pariah of sorts. They're not respected in school. They're not respected in town. In fact, the professor ends up getting arrested simply for creating them by accident. But lo and behold, there's another outcast of sorts by the name of Jojo, who of course eventually becomes, as we know, Mojo Jojo. And he, as established actually in an episode from the first season, he was the pet shimp of Professor Utonium. It was always considered the favorite, but once the girls came, he felt sore of jealousy, and because he had a dash of the of mutation after the Chemical X explosion, he gained super intelligence and uses his super intelligence to trick the girls into making him this super weapon that made him steal all of the monkeys and apes from the zoo and make them under his control, and try to take over Townsville. And from there off, it's a lot of action and a lot of humor, and pretty much everything. For the most part, everything that you associate with the show is in the movie. There's a lot of sweetness, but there's also a lot of cynicism to it with the way the comedy goes. Because the comedy, like the show, is like the comedy established like in Dexter's Lab, where it is cynical, and it's also witty, and also incredibly super violent. Like, this is probably one of the most violent the show has ever been. Doesn't help that this movie had the unfortunate blemish of coming out in the summer of 2002. So let's just say critics weren't completely comfortable with seeing a city and being buildings getting destroyed, if you know what I mean. Hint, hint.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with Lilo and Stitch, right? Because they had to change the climax of Lilo and Stitch. For the same reason.
So where instead of a plane, they're just driving the ship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that controversy. Even though we were super young at the time, I do remember that being a big deal. I remember seeing on ABC news articles, people were freaking out because of this Powerpuff Girls movie. Okay. So as far as what we were talking about, SpongeBob being an expanded version of the show. Powerpuff Girls, it's 11-minute episodes, right? Little bite-size.
11 minutes, but spliced together, 2 of them equals 22 minutes.
Same thing. Okay, so does this do as good a job or a comparable job? Expanding the story, because Powerpuff Girls, as if I remember correctly, because I've seen a few episodes, but a long time ago, it's a fairly straightforward straightforward concept, right? Like, isn't it like a villain of the day kind of thing where, or like,
Is that, and it's like them learning lessons, life
uh,
lessons. When it comes to the movie though, I kind of, I was kind of rooting for Mojo Jojo. You know what I'm saying? I felt like he was the outcast, and he didn't get a little fair shake. So I was like, man, use the monkeys. That was Caesar before he came Caesar from Planet of the Apes. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if Cartoon Network want to sue. Who did that movie?
Yeah, Fox
Fox.
Disney now. So
Okay. So he was the first Caesar, Mojo Jojo. That was the first intelligent monkey. Wait,
well,
not the
no,
first intelligent monkey, but
well,
you know what I'm saying?
the Planet of the Apes movies, those are from the '60s, right? The
Yeah.
originals.
But Caesar, I'm referring to like Caesar, like a monkey who led a rebellion in a sense or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
But y'all wanted him to win with all his monkeys with the brain protruding out. That was nasty though. I didn't like. I was like, ew, that don't look right. I need to
seeing
put
the
a
brain
helmet on
sticking
that
out.
thing. Yeah, that was.
Okay, so like, how are they like? Are they able? I'm assuming the movie's what 90 minutes. Like,
Less than that. It's like less than 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Did it in
And it came on
theaters?
Cartoon Network too.
Because usually when they have a movie like that, they did the same thing with the first Rugrats movie, where in theaters they would pair the movie with like a short. I think in Rugrats it was like a cat dog short. Did they do the same thing for Powerpuff Girls to accommodate like the short runtime?
They very much did. There was a Dexter's Laboratory short that played exclusively in front of it called I think it was called Chicken Scratch, and because the way it was a short that was directed by Gendy Tartakovsky, even though this was when the seasons 3 and 4 of Dexter's Lab came out, which Gendy for the most part wasn't involved with because he was busy working on Samurai Jack and to its extent the PPG movie. So this short does have a lot of that kind of that Gendy style of direction where it's like a lot of close-ups and a lot of like extreme shots and even though it is for the most part still technically the season 3 and 4 aesthetic, which people either love or hate, but I still think it's a kind of grotesque but still funny short where Dexter catches chicken pox and he's trying to figure out like how to stop scratching, and also Dee Dee's there, like none of interfering, and and if you own the movie like on VHS like I did, they would play the shorts before it too, or on the DVD they would just have it as a bonus feature.
Right. Yeah. Okay. How is the animation for Powerpuff Girls the movie? Because I'm thinking about
Great.
remember when Doug's first movie, which was like I know we're the last people to say this, but like the bravado that they had to call Doug's first movie as if there was going to be a second and third movie, but like that animation looks exactly like the TV show, where not it looked like a TV movie that they put on in theaters, which essentially was
what they did.
Yeah. So Powerpuff Girls, did that have the same problem, or was it?
This didn't, because even though it is technically the same kind of quality of the show to an extent, where it's the simplistic designs, like the cute, soft looking girls in front of in a pointy, sharp environment of threatening villains. Here, this was the first time that the characters were all slightly redesigned. The heads were a little more rounder. The characters were more angular looking, like with Professor Utonium and everyone else. And Mojo's design was also noticeably changed. With the sharper teeth and the pointy ears and the more angular look, which is the style that they would use for the show afterwards once it came back after the movie.
Okay.
But they very much take advantage of it being a movie, because they make certain shots and scope look bigger. They use a little bit of CG at points, not excessively, but only for certain shots. Like when when the girls are playing tag in the city, they use CG for when the giant ball from the tower rolls down. It's 3-dimensional with knocking everything over, but it blends in pretty well in a way that's not distracting. And it's a lot of that. because again, Tartakovsky actually helped direct the animation, even though Craig McCracken was still the director. There's a lot of his touches to the way that this movie looks too, and the way it's shot with the action and the scope. And this was a lot of it is very much up close, and like the show, they take no punches, no pun intended, with the violence, because characters like the monkeys and are like brutally beat up, and you see as much like city destruction as possible. And again, in a post 9/11 world, I kind of get why people were uncomfortable with it, but it's all shot extremely well, and there still have those wonderful Craig McCracken designs where it harkens back to like old Hanna-Barbera and old UPA, where it's all very much angular and stylized, and every character like looks and feels unique in their own way.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with the direction of how everything is shot, because they made this in widescreen, which that was the problem when this came out on DVD. They didn't even put it in widescreen, which was a little distracting, but hey, I got over it. But I can say that because even though I did not see this movie when it originally came out, because I was not even 3 yet, but the benefit was a number of years ago, around 2013, 2014, I think, I saw this movie at TIFF for a re-release, because they were doing a bunch of screenings for superhero movies.
Wow.
Got to go in there. The one I got to see was an original theatrical print of the Powerpuff Girls movie that included the Harry Potter trailer before it and the Dexter's Lab shorts.
Wow. Wow, man. Yeah, I really wish this movie was on HBO Max. Like, is it lost or something? Like, are the rights weird?
You know what's crazy? I try to buy like the DVD set, the DVDs, and like the movie, and it's just, I think people really like the Powerpuff Girls a lot, because the last time I saw the set was $350, bro.
Yeah,
and the movie
it's out of print.
So it's probably a commodity.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Although the movie was available on last time I checked, and I watched it on it. The movie was on Tubi for free, and I guess maybe it was like some sort of Canadian deal, but the movie was on Tubi in HD in widescreen, and they even added the Dexter's Lab short before to expand it. And I don't know why I think it was available on demand in the States, because I know Cartoon Network would still air it whenever they felt like it. Maybe they will, because as we're recording this, it is the 30th anniversary of Cartoon Network this year, and they are going
I've been watching Cartoon Network.
Happy birthday, Cartoon Network.
And they're showing like little clips of their old shows. Yeah.
So that they could re-release it like on Blu-ray. They probably could, because they have the Warner Archive, which they always use to re-release older movies or financial bombs or cult classics on Blu-ray as they were meant to be seen.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love the idea of watching movies for TV shows that you haven't watched, and seeing how the movie works as like a gateway into that world. So like, I mean, I like the SpongeBob movie. I feel like, people who haven't watched SpongeBob, they could watch the movie and like get a good feel for how the show is. I'm wondering if Powerpuff Girls would be the same way. Which is why like I'm bummed I wasn't able to watch it before recording.
Powerpuff Girls.
But
oh, go ahead.
No. Continue. Yeah.
I was gonna say Powerpuff Girls was like, in my opinion, the first little cartoon that had like girl empowerment. They had these little girls being girly girls, but there was also kicking these huge monsters' butt, man. They had heat vision, frost breath. Like when I was a kid, bro, I wanted to be Blossom. Remember playing with my cousins. I was like, I'm Blossom. Nope, I'm Blossom. And it was like, you can't be Blossom, you're a girl. And then the Rowdy Rough Boys came out. And I was like, ooh, there we go for the boys.
Yeah,
man, this is a great show.
Yeah, I just remember the thing that stuck out to me at the time when the show was going on. One of them sounded like Tommy from Tommy Pickles from
Buttercup.
Rugrats. Yeah,
Because it's the same voice, E.G. Daly,
Yeah,
and I
E.G.
mean
Daly.
by that logic too, Tara Strong, the voice of
Yeah.
Dill, is the voice of Bubbles. So full
Yeah,
circle
yeah.
right there.
Yeah. So that was when I was starting to realize the concept of voice actors and voice actors, playing multiple roles. So, but yeah,
let's not forget about him.
oh,
You remember him, Ryan?
Oh, Mr. Quackers, am I the only one who hates those miserable little brats? You hate them too? Oh, I knew I could count on you. But how could I possibly beat them with all that love surrounding them? What's that you say? Yes, that's brilliant. Oh, Mr. Quackers, you are so smart. Quite a positively evil scheme you've hatched, and I'll finally be rid of those girls forever.
he's
Yes.
he's the lobster man, the satanic lobster man.
That dude was creepy. Like, I was scared of that man. Like, his little echo voice. Oh my goodness. Nasty.
That's is he Tom Kane? Is Tom Kane voice him?
Tom Kane, yeah.
Okay.
Who's also Professor Utonium.
Okay, and then he voices Clone Wars. He voices Yoda on the Clone Wars. And the thing is, I'm so used to, because I love the Clone Wars so much, I'm so used to the way Tom Kane voices Yoda that I actually kind of prefer it to, I know this is going to sound blasphemous, but I actually prefer Tom Kane's voice to Frank Oz's voice as Yoda, because whenever Yoda talks as Frank Oz, it just sounds like Grover to me. Like, I can't get Grover's voice out of my head.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. What Star Wars Rebels, they brought back Frank Oz to voice Yoda, and I was like, why does Yoda sound weird? Like, that's not Yoda. No, what? And it was actually like the actual Yoda. So, like, anyway, I know people are gonna like go up in arms because of that, but whatever. Anything else about Powerpuff Girls before we?
I will say,
cute.
Who's cute?
Miss King, the teacher.
Ah.
I was more of a Miss Bellum person myself.
Miss Bellum.
Okay. We're kind of, I guess, going over time for this segment. Just briefly, Dameon, what was the movie you were going to talk about? Just like briefly, like your.
I was going to say
shotgun.
the movie that didn't get a theatrical release, but it came on Cartoon Network as a premiere. And a whole TV movie was the Ed, Edd n Eddy movie.
Ed, Edd n Eddy!
I thought that was a very cool little movie since I was a huge Ed, Edd n Eddy fan. And how, like, at the end of it, spoiler alert, the whole mystery of the movie was meeting Eddie's brother. And he was so cool. He ran like the cul-de-sac back in the day. And once they met Eddie's brother, Double D and Ed was realizing that, oh, wait a minute, Eddie's older brother would abuse Eddie, like physically abuse him. And they was like, oh my goodness, this is, sad, and this is terrible. And then, like, all the kids from the cul-de-sac was coming to jump the crew, but then they see Eddie's brother is like physically harming Eddie, and they all beat up Eddie's brother. And I just thought it was such a good little sticking it to the bully ending.
Yeah,
I wanted to just tough that out there.
TV movies are interesting. I know, like, animators, they like that are working on shows, like, they hate it because they have to work double time. They have to do the next episode of the show on top of doing whatever the movie is. But I mean, it's good for us, at least, whenever like we get one, like with Fairly Odd Parents, they had like 1 billion TV movies. Like, it was like what the one with the
best one was
Abracatastrophe, Wishology, Channel Chasers.
Was it the
Oh.
well champ? Oh, go ahead.
which stars Alec Baldwin from the SpongeBob movie.
Yeah. Channel Chasers was probably like my favorite one, just because
That
they're
was
going
cool.
through
Yeah.
they're going through all the channels, and then like they have like
To
the Blues
fight
Clues.
Vicky.
They do the Blues Clues. It's Clint's Hints, and it's a
Yeah.
grown man. Just they do a Speed Racer, and then was it Teenage Mutant
Jason
Ninja
and the
Turtles?
Pussycat.
Yeah,
They
a
got
Tom and
tails in
Jerry
their power
parody,
hat.
Sesame Street one where there's like sheep puppets. They're just
They
breaking
did Dragon
through.
Ball Z too.
Yeah,
That was
Mahamushi.
that was
and
inspired.
The Simpsons.
Yeah, they did do The
Yeah,
Simpsons. I as far as like Cartoon Network, like I know a regular show. Like I have no idea why they didn't make a regular show the movie called Regular Movie. Like it was right there. That's all they had
Right.
to do is call it Regular Movie. But that was actually good. That was one where it was like it wasn't like as funny as the show, but it was actually a really legitimately good plot. Like developing the relationship between Mordecai and Rigby, and like how selfish Rigby is. Like he does something like really messed up that like I wouldn't forgive somebody for doing for me. Do you remember
Yeah,
the regular show? Like he's so obsessed with being friends with Mordecai that he actually tears up his acceptance letter to get into like art school, just so he could still be friends with Mordecai, which is like really messed up. And Mordecai's like he's like traumatized that he didn't get into that school. So I mean, Mordecai's like a better guy a better man than I am. Like I wouldn't tolerate that. But I like that movie. Was it Camp Lazlo had a movie too, didn't they?
Technically, yeah.
And then what Jimmy Neutron had a few. I know Jimmy started off as
Well,
a movie,
Jimmy started
but
as a movie, then they did the
Yokians.
Pants that
Well, that was a special. That was the first episode, the when
Yeah,
Pants attack, and then they
When
did
Pants
what
attack.
the egg pyre strikes
Yokians.
back.
yeah, the Yokians.
When the Yokians come back, and then they did the Win Lose Kaboom with Tim Allen as the villain, where it was like a survivor in space. You know what I'm talking about, where he like kidnaps
Then it was-
the
Yeah.
it was
Then
the
it
game
was the
show.
Endman. I think that was like a little hour.
Was that a special, or
Wait,
was it? I think that was.
No,
I
I
think
don't
that
think
was
that
just
was just an episode.
that was
It
just
was
a
the
half
one-
hour special.
It was the one
Yeah.
where they went interdimensional. Was a little special. Remember that?
And
Wasn't that-
need we forget the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour?
Oh, the crossover between Jimmy Neutron and Timmy
And
Turner.
Timmy, yeah.
They made three of them. And they were good. Well, the first two were really good. The third one was kind of the third one. They spent too much time in the 2D world, because I don't know if they didn't want to spend money making everyone CG. But that was cool. That was the one where at the end of the second one, Professor Calamitous, he gets merged with Jorgen von Strangle.
Jorgen von Strangle.
And Jorgen's like, the entire time your breath smelled like fish tacos. And it's just
Jorgen von Strangle.
do you remember? This is way off topic. Remember Wandissimo on
Wandissimo.
Yeah.
He would always flex and his shirt would rip.
And they kept calling him on a kid's show. They kept calling him sexy.
Yeah.
And like he like loses the Olympics or whatever. But like Jorgen, he was like, Wandissimo has lost, but he is still sexy. And it's
Yeah. Or when he turns into the rooster and he goes, cock-a-doodle-doo, you got sexy.
You think I'm sexy?
All right. We are way out of time. All right, let's move on to. I mean, there are a million examples of TV shows that they made into movies. You got Bob's Burgers that just came out. You got The Simpsons. You got South Park, My Little Pony,
Teen Titans Go.
Teen Titans Go, which was actually
Shaun
good.
the Sheep.
I really like the movie. Shaun the Sheep, yes. But I mean, maybe we had to do a sequel to this episode since there's so much to talk about. But for now, let's take let's move on to the television segment. And so we'll catch you guys after this brief little break. As you can tell, we could talk about like cartoons all day. We can get carried away. All right. Let's jump right into it. Remember when Crocker? He's like, they didn't believe me. They thought I was crazy, and I am crazy enough to know that fairies do exist. All right, so let's talk about television shows. A million cartoons we all grew up with. Just very quickly, without going off into a brief, quick, over long tangent. Go around the room. How about we share what our favorite, cartoon animated series is? Assuming it's not one of the ones we're about to talk about. Dameon, just really quickly.
Ed, Edd n Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, Cat Dog, SpongeBob, of course. What else? That's it. I'm sure it's more, but go.
Cat Dog, alone in the world and a little cat dog. All right, Ryan.
See, for Nickelodeon, favorites are SpongeBob and Avatar. Cartoon Network favorites are Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls. Disney favorites are Phineas and Ferb, Gravity Falls, and Gargoyles. Fox favorites Simpsons and King of the Hill. And that's when I put it into categories. That's how I would do it.
Okay. I haven't put them in categories, but like top three, we got Star Wars: The Clone Wars, regular show, and SpongeBob. I would also put like Boondocks is probably up there, and the rest they kind of ebb and flow. There's a lot of shows that I love, which I mean, it's great. Like I said earlier, we live in a golden age of animation, not just like, family or kids animation, but also adult animation. Just really, really, really quickly, Ryan, is there a show that is not yet on Disney Plus or HBO Max that you have been waiting to rewatch that you wish would be on one of those streaming services? Something that you grew up with or whatever?
For Disney Plus, the two big ones as far as those produced in house at Disney would probably be the Aladdin series and Buzz Lightyear Star Command, which I still question why they're not on there yet.
I'm surprised Aladdin isn't on there. Wasn't there a crossover between Aladdin and Hercules?
And yes, and that episode's on Disney Plus for Hercules, but that show isn't, even though Little Mermaid and Timon and Pumbaa are all on there.
Yeah, because I like that because Hades teams up with Jafar, and it's kind of like a mini Kingdom Hearts kind of thing. But for me, well, I don't know. I will say there's a show that's not on Disney Plus yet, and I think I figured out why. Maybe, Damon, you'd probably be able to agree with this. Do you guys remember Dave the Barbarian?
Barbarian, 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 barbarian. Dave the Barbarian, huge bottle wind. His sisters Bang and Candy, or a princess and a chimp.
Their mom and dad are the queen and king of the land of Utrokoff. They've left to battle evil, and now Candy is the
Bang and Candy, brave and bold and not. They ain't the greatest heroes, but they're the only ones we've got. Barbarian, 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 barbarian,
The Jammers!
On Disney Channel.
Barbarian.
But jabbers. Okay, so I didn't realize this at the time, even though Dave's uncle was a black guy. But like Dave, he's a biracial guy. He's a biracial character. Which did you?
I didn't know that.
Well, like in the theme song, where it's like Dave the Barbarian, and you see his parents. The king is a white guy, and his mom is it's a tiny black woman. So like straight up, like Dave and his family, they're a biracial family. And if you remember, Dave's little sister Fang, do you remember what they called her? What they keep calling her?
or a princess and a chimp.
The N word.
But no,
Nope.
Oh,
no. In the theme song, they call her a chimp, and she keeps her
goddamn.
her catchphrase is not a monkey, and that is not
Oh
cool.
yeah, I'm not a monkey.
That is not cool. Like they say, his sister sang in Candy, a princess and a chimp, and she says not a monkey. That's not cool. Like if you're gonna have them be biracial, like you can't have
That was on purpose. I
a
told
little
you.
black girl being called a chimp. And then also like of all
Oh.
things, what?
Well, she's voiced by a white woman too.
Does that make it better?
I don't know. I just took her like, oh, she acts like a primeval because she's she's kind of nuts.
And Ron, I don't know the voice actor's name, but Ron did his voice, right?
Dave's voice.
Impossible.
For Dave, no, it was Danny Cooksey who was the voice of Montana Max and what's his name from Shaolin Showdown.
Okay.
Jack Spicer, because it was probably my favorite character from Shaolin Showdown.
I just think it's funny of all, you have the Proud Family, but of all, you're going to have another black cartoon on Disney Channel. And of all things, he's a barbarian. So that's probably why. That's probably why Disney's.
If you think about it too long, but like the whole show they never overtly state race or anything like that, like the Proud Family does.
I never thought of it until recently. I got nostalgic for the theme song, and so I looked up the song on YouTube, and I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute now, that his mom is black. Dave the Barbarian is biracial. So I mean, I'm sure like it was just an oversight. It was a different time at the time, the early 2000s. No one was thinking of that. They probably thought they were doing us a favor, even though his sword is like a black stereotype. His talking sword.
It's not a black sword. It's more of a Jewish mother's sword. It's just Estelle Harris.
Is it? I always maybe I just coded her as being black because in my head maybe it's the Mandela effect because I remember her having a okay fair enough.
It's Estelle Harris, so the sword just sounded like Mrs. Potato Head.
Okay, maybe it was because the justification between the sword and the uncle or whatever. Because I always like the Mandela effect. I remember her being like having a sassy black voice, but that's fair enough, Ryan. Okay. I like Estelle Harris. I like Mrs. Potato Head and the villain from Tarzan 2, Legend of Young Tarzan or whatever that movie was. Okay, so we all love animation, but there are plenty of shows that are we would like to call underrated. There are shows that maybe got canceled, before their time that we loved, and on the playground we would reach out to our friends and say, "Hey, you guys got to watch the show. I can't believe more people aren't watching this." And that has grown, even more so now in the age of streaming because there are a million streaming services. There are a million, there's a million examples of good television to watch. So it's impossible to watch everything. So that's what I wanted to focus on this segment. Underrated TV shows, and one such show was a show that actually just potentially ended. We don't know if it's coming back at the time of this recording, and that is Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal. On Adult Swim / HBO Max.
Finished that?
Yes. I finished it. Ryan, I'm assuming you finished Primal.
Yep,
right?
I watched them when they aired.
Okay,
Yep,
good. This show, I mean, it premiered. Basically, it has to do with like it's not quite the Jurassic era, because in the second season all the timelines
I
are
don't
kind
know
of,
what this
they
is.
don't line up. But it's like it starts off with these prehistoric characters. It's a caveman and his family. Basically, his family, his wife and little kids, get murdered they get eaten by these dinosaurs. And he comes across this other dinosaur who likewise loses her family to the same dinosaurs, I believe. And they're
Hmm.
basically, they team up, they join forces over the course of, or because of their trauma. It's a really cruel world. All these prehistoric creatures are violent and want to kill you in the jungle or whatnot. So they basically, misery loves company. They join forces, not easily at first. They're fighting each other, but eventually, the caveman and this dinosaur, I believe they're named what, Fang and Spear, they form this
Hmm.
bond. They become a family, and basically the show is about them, surviving in this cruel world. Um, like Jendi, like he's known to do with, like, the 2D Clone Wars, the Samurai Jack, well, I haven't watched Symbiotic Titan, but like he's like his strength is in his animation and having very limited dialogue. And this show, for the most part, there's not a lot of dialogue. Most episodes, it's just characters screaming at one another if they can talk.
Hmm.
But despite that, there's still genuine emotion. It's like incredibly violent. Like the show opens with little kids getting like chomped down, and they show it. Like it's in silhouette, but like you still see the blood and everything. So like it sets up the stakes of what could possibly happen in this world. So it's incredibly violent, and you get attached to these characters because you just want to see them make it. Um, so, I mean, what's your guys' take on Primal? Your
I'll
experience
start us
watching the
off.
show. Yeah.
Man, man, oh man, I love it. As I concluded the final episodes, I realized the theme of it all was, family. Protecting your family and your lineage going on. Because as we all know, as the show ends, a lineage gets passed on from the Fang, the dinosaur, and Spear, the caveman. And as I was watching that, I was thinking back on, how it all started, how they lost their families in the beginning, and now they got a whole new family. And that was very, very beautiful, man.
Ryan, what's your take on Primal?
I'd say it is. I'd say it probably is Gendy's magnum opus so far. I mean, next to Samurai Jack, because it is. It's a show that brilliantly uses visual storytelling to its advantage in a way where you care about what's happening. You're enthralled the whole time. It's incredibly intense. It holds no punches. It's pretty much like an experience watching all of the ways that the action is shot, or how incredibly gruesome it gets, because there are some graphic depths, and it's impressive how they
Yeah,
get away
man.
with it for what is still a cable network like Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like it's like most of the episode, like it's so violent, and these characters get like torn up. Like they will spend half the next episode like healing. Like they'll have Fang and
Yeah.
Spear like pulling spears and like arrows out of themselves, and
Hmm.
they'll finally get patched up, only for them to get attacked again and like shot up a bunch of times and like scratched
Hmm.
apart and open again. Um, if you see like a new character, like a new character that they get introduced on the show, like don't get attached to anybody, because like there've been a few episodes where like, oh, that's a cool character. I guess they're gonna join the team, and they're gonna, oh no, they got eaten. Okay, I guess that's it. I guess they're gone. So like don't get attached to anybody on this show. Like it's like I said, it's a cruel world. Like it's an incredibly
Yeah.
harsh show. Um, the animation is gorgeous. Like again, like you said, Ryan, for like cable television, like it is beautiful. Like I've never seen anything as good looking, or as aside from like other stuff that Jendi has put out. Like, but even for him, like this is like you said, his magnum opus as far as like the the way the environments look, the way the character designs are,
Emmy
and
Award
everything.
winning, by the way.
Is it? Has it won? Okay, good for
Yeah.
it. It deserves it. The animation's almost too good because in the first season I almost had to stop watching. There's the episode where the ick, where like the dinosaurs get the disease.
Yeah, that was nasty.
It was gross. It was too grotesque. Like there's one dinosaur that's like legitimately like falling
Throwing
apart
up in the water. Oh,
yeah, and like skin is falling apart and all this pus and stuff. And I was like, this is too much. I can't keep watching it. The animation was too good. Whereas like I don't think I'm gonna keep watching it. But I'm glad I stuck with it because the second season takes the show in so many new crazy directions. In terms of like storytelling, in terms of the animation and the action on screen and everything. They introduce a lot more humans in the second season, and it's a bunch of different tribes. Like they bring in like the Nords, the Nordic tribes.
Yeah.
They bring in like the Indian tribes. And one thing I'm impressed about, they have not one, but they have two different African tribes that they bring in, which is interesting because usually in cartoons they just lump us all into one group, but they actually have two distinct different African cultures on display, which I was impressed with. And again, like, you know, the characters, they may speak in their native tongue or whatever, but like we have no clue what they're saying, and yet they're still able to get across on screen, you know, the emotion behind it. And you know, you feel it when these characters are bonding, and you feel it when characters get killed off. Also, like, it goes in some pretty crazy directions. Like they bring in it just for, since the show is still fairly new, we could like avoid spoilers, but like they bring in like a certain Nordic character from Norse mythology that like I really love. Like it's a character that looks really cool, and like he comes out of nowhere.
Who brings on Ragnarok?
It's like, where did this come from? And yet you accept it just because like I guess Jendi. It was like really cool, and like they set it up in the background, and it's like really cool. I'm surprised the way they go, the direction the show goes. And then there's like one random episode. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, but this world, it kind of introduced us to that level of mysticism when they got exposed to those witches.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was another crazy episode.
There's an episode where like they flash forward to the Victorian era with Charles Dickens. And I know people didn't like that episode because it was random, but like it was good. Like it was scary.
It was talking about
intense.
Man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It was
how
intense.
How we're all animals, really, if we put in a certain position, you know.
And it ends on a joke that's like funny too, despite like what the horrific situation that those characters go through. So like it's great. I haven't seen all of Jendi's filmography, but I mean I've watched Samurai Jack and the Hotel Transylvania movies. Like I don't think those are like the best representation of what he's capable of, but like is that, and he did Dexter's too, didn't he?
Yeah, he created it.
Okay, yeah. That Clone Wars, there's some other stuff that like I'm not remembering, but I think I agree, Ryan, that this is just definitely him like flexing what he's capable of doing within 22 minutes. Like every episode is like an odyssey. The show is near perfect. The show is near perfect, except for me, and I guess you would disagree with me, Dameon, but the ending. And not like the last scene, but the second to the last scene within the last like 60 seconds. It will be vague, but like the thing that happens, like I get why he did it, but it's kind of questionable because, okay, how can I put this?
You mean like why he did what?
All right, so like there's a scene at the end where like, okay, as an audience, we know that this is probably going to happen at some point, and like we know that these two characters probably want this thing to happen. But the way they go about it, it's very rushed, and it's kind of questionable because, especially since the characters can't talk, it kind of just happens. And it's like you didn't really get the go ahead to do that. Like it's kind of like you're assuming. There's a lot of assumptions going on in that scene.
But what about the art painting on the wall that he created?
Yeah, but it's like it's different from like getting the go ahead. Like it's different between like okay, like that it's so I don't know. I would say that like if the roles were reversed, it would be a problem
That'd have been
because
crazy.
it would have been a problem and people would have been up in arms. I don't know, Ryan, did you feel the same way or like
I
do you
mean,
see what
it
I'm saying?
was kind of, it is, because it is a lot to process.
Yeah. Like, am I crazy for like 'cause it's kind of
Well, I
questionable,
think.
right? Like,
Well, I think both of them wanted family. But when you say like if the roles were reversed, that would have been taken off television.
yeah, yeah, and
Because all
also
he
like,
did was say her name. You know what I'm saying?
and that's
And
all he knows how to say. He
she
doesn't
was
know how to
like, "Let
talk.
me take care of this. Let me ease your burns."
But look, like despite that, like again, they can't talk, so like they can't really give the. But I think it's 22-minute episodes. They have to do what they can to cram as much as they can within the last minute. I think that scene, if it had gone on a little longer, like maybe him holding the hand or something to indicate
Hmm.
like, hey, no, it's okay, let's do this. That
He
would have
should have pointed
gone.
at her box.
I,
He
I,
pointed.
I don't know. It's just it's a little questionable. I don't know, Ryan. Am I crazy? Like, I mean, like, did you think the same thing, or like?
Not probably not to that extent. It's just hard. I just tried to process it, seeing like, well, maybe they'll answer this in if this it, when or if it comes back. Because Gendy has hinted, well, we have ideas if it does come back, because the show is not canceled. The show is
Not
very
yet.
much not canceled. He's just for the time being, Gendy's going to be working on another show called The Unicorns Warriors Eternal, which should be out either sometime this winter or sometime in 2023. That show's going to come by the time, and I'm intrigued because the pictures it still has a bit of that primal aesthetic to it.
What is it coming on? Is it coming on Cartoon Network or something else?
It's Cartoon Network and HBO Max. So
Okay. Is it adult?
I'll be
Is it
watching
adult?
it.
Is it Adult Swim or is it
it's regular Cartoon Network.
Okay, okay. Well, despite the ending, uh, I don't know.
She
Like,
was tall. She was Mira was hot.
I like Mirror. Like I like the way they portrayed her. Like she wasn't just like a damsel in distress. Like she was capable of taking care of herself. There was a few points where like I thought they were gonna kill her. Where I was like, you guys got to do something. Like is she gonna die? Like so like
and how about that queen too? That queen.
Yeah,
was,
her too. Yeah, I liked her too.
B word. Oh my goodness! I wanted somebody to strangle her.
I just wanted the big what's the Michael Clark Duncan looking dude to just like because he like picks her up.
Oh
I
yeah,
thought he was
he
gonna
was like
I thought he was gonna twist her in
7, 8
half.
foot tall.
He was like an angel, like he's like Goliath
The whole
from the
tribe
Bible.
was that big. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, no, I like Primal. Primal's a great show, like excellent. Like the way it ends in a way where if it doesn't come back for a third season, it does have a satisfactory ending, despite the questionable methods that they use to get to that ending. But I'm not. Part of me feels like they knew what was good. There's no way they could have known, but like if they had known what was going on with HBO and Discovery canceling everything, it's like Jendi said, you know what? Let's just can't have a definitive ending, so the fans could be satisfied with this. And if we get a third season, then good for us. We could continue on. But yeah, anything else about Primal before?
Go watch it so we can get a third season, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, if it helps, if Discovery cares, but yeah, no.
Did Discovery buy, or did they merge together? They said it was gonna even merge.
It was a merger, but Discovery, I guess they have like it sounds like they're the bosses now, right? They have the all the powers in their corner. It sounds like, right? Because they're the ones canceling everything, right?
Yep.
It's
they don't know what they're doing.
It's a sad, it's a scary time if you like, because HBO Max was like the best of the streaming services, and now it's like they're threatening everything. But whatever. I mean, it's maybe by the time this episode comes out, maybe things will be different. And all those shows, Batgirl will come back, and Infinity Train and everything, all those shows would come back, and maybe they'll get resolved by then. Who knows? But let's move on. So Jendi, he had another show on Cartoon Network that I myself didn't watch because it wasn't advertised very well. It was it was not at all on my radar. I think I remember seeing it on the guide when I was watching something else at the time, and I was like, "What is Symbionic Titan? What is that?"
No, Father, I won't go.
Find the princess and destroy her once and for all.
This planet is called Earth.
Your father sent us here for a reason.
We must keep you safe.
Get her out of here, now!
You have to stop! They're humanoid! This is to be our new home.
People your age attend high schools.
What a perfect hiding place.
What is that?
Floppy Joe.
Oh no.
They followed us here?
What do we do?
Engage a Symbionic Titan.
The authorities are looking for any information leading to the identity of the Titan.
Incredible.
Symbionic Titan. New series coming to Fridays in September. Only on Cartoon Network.
But anyway, you guys watched it, so take the wheel. What's going on with that Symbionic Titan? What is it about? Why is it deserving to be, viewed by everybody else? Like, what is it?
Well, the show is about these three characters from another planet these three characters from another planet who end up crash landing on Earth, and one of them, there's a princess named Alana, a royal guard by the name of Lance, and they're a giant, not really giant, but a big human-sized robot named Octus, who once they land on Earth after their planet gets not necessarily blown up, but gets like in peril. They crash on Earth, but they have to blend into human society on Earth. So what they do is they go to high school. They pose as regular teenagers, and the robot disguises himself as a human too. Mm-hmm. And so what happens in that, as they try to blend into society, they still have to face various perils from other planets and other worlds, and they do so by forming this a giant robot that goes by the Symbionic Titan. They combine the heart, body, and mind together. They form it, and they take on whatever threat is facing Earth, while also attempting to blend into human society. But it's also difficult because like the government is kind of after them and on their trail too, so they have to blend in while also saving the world, and a lot of things happen from there in only one 20-episode season. That, despite the short length, has a lot going for it with the way how ambitious it really is. Because this was the first show that Ginny did since the 2003 Clone Wars. Because it's completely it's not that. It relies way more on dialogue and delivery than something like Samurai Jack would. But even though Samurai Jack did have dialogue, it wasn't the focus. This has dialogue combined with a lot of the action, because a lot of it is about these characters, how they can fit in with these other high schoolers, sometimes being an outcast or later trying to fit in, and it gets pretty intriguing from there. And a lot of that too is you have an incredible voice talent like Tara Strong, Kevin Thomas, or the standout to me is because he's somebody I just find very funny, is Brian Posehn as the robot Octus. Mm-hmm. He just has this voice where he already has a funny voice in general, but when it's coming out of a robot that so tries to blend in, it just comes across humorous, especially just how inexpressive his disguise is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you describe it, it sounds like Voltron, like a mix between Voltron and like Pacific Rim, at least as far as like them coming together and creating a giant Jaeger,
it's
giant robot.
It's Pacific Rim before Pacific Rim.
Okay, yeah.
And Voltron is a great comparison because let's be upfront, Ginny loves anime. Like, ever since Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, with Samurai Jack, all of those shows have mecha robots and homages to anime. And this show is pretty overt with it, with the fact that it is named after the giant robot that they formed, because it is very much like Voltron. Although the thing I should go on.
No, continue. Yeah.
What I will say is regarding that this show got canceled in April of 2011. Probably the reason that the show got canceled is because they were unable to secure toy licenses, and there was no merchandise that was made out of the show, despite even though part of that too was because there was just not even a lack of marketing, but the marketing was never even ambitious as to the levels of other shows, like with Adventure Time or regular show, the latter of which premiered the same month.
Right.
So but I also feel like that maybe it's just a curse with Cartoon Network. If you're going to make a show for Cartoon Network, maybe don't make it a show about 3 characters and a giant robot, because there was another Cartoon Network show about three characters and a giant robot that ended up fighting creatures from other planets that ended up getting canceled.
I'm trying to
Megas
think of...
XLR.
Okay. All right.
What is it? What was it?
Megas XLR, which also had a very anime aesthetic, but partly the reason that got canceled too was because of was not even just because they couldn't secure toy rights. They were just getting low ratings, and part of that was because they dumped that as like a 4:00 in the afternoon show during the Toonami blocks. And that kind of answers the question. Whereas this, like all of Gendy's shows prior, it was a prime time show, so you would watch it at like 8:00, 8:30. But all of the strengths of Gendy's other productions are there. It has the greatest style aesthetic. Like great character designs, great poses. I mean, and a lot of it is extremely fluid. And they really, like what I was saying before with the Powerpuff Girls, they only use CG when necessary, like with the robot, because the robot is like a 3D cell shaded kind of robot, which is typical.
Is this because this is like an action show, right? Well, it's Gendy, so it is. I'm assuming it's an action show. Does it have like an overarching plot too? Because like I know, or is it like more of a monster of the week, villain of the week kind of thing?
It in some ways you could say it's monsters of the week, but it also does have an overarching story with like the U.S. government, and also this there's this evil, insane general from their planet who is always like sending the mutants of his to go and kill them off, and it is pretty threatening too. He kind of I always thought he was supposed to be like simian like, because he looks like a monkey, because you never see his eye, you just see the giant's eye like on his helmet that's able to kill people.
Because I'm wondering, because a lot of Cartoon Network, shows in general on all channels, including another one we're going to bring up, but like shows that have a overarching plot, usually action shows at the time, they were getting canceled in favor of having more episodic comedic shows on all 3 of those channels, all 3 of the big cartoon channels. And I'm wondering if it's because, I mean, Pan Pizza, he talks about it all the time, where like if you're a kid watching these shows, you can't just jump into a middle just a random episode of like Transformers Prime or whatever, because like it has a overarching plot, and you need to know what's going on in the previous episode to understand what's going on in this episode. Whereas, compare that to an episode of, regular show or Adventure Time or whatever. Yes, there is like overarching elements, and especially with regular show, especially towards the end of the series, they became more serialized. But like it's mostly just kind of just crazy antics. So you could just pop in and wherever, and you'll be fine. Do you think that has something to do with Symbiotic getting canceled prematurely?
I mean, probably not, because it happens to it would happen to other shows too that actually would get toys, like say the 2011 Thundercats. Like even that technically had toys, but even that still got canceled after its 26 episode first season.
Right. Well, Dameon, you watched the show. What was your take on Symbiotic Titan?
Shout out to Ryan Walterson for being so articulate. You was giving me flashbacks as I was listening to you. I thought it was pretty solid. I really liked how they started talking about how how crazy their home planet was. And they were doing all those flashbacks. One part I remember distinctly is when I think the robot was he went up to the school, I think to meet one of the teachers, and he was falling for her. Am I correct about that, Ryan? You remember that?
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious because he was checking her out. He was getting some of them real people feelings. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, I loved it. It's so funny because I always would say to myself like, damn, what if I had to take care of Princess and we had to form this Titan? Like, would my Titan be like purple, green? Like, what color would it be, or something like that? But Gindy don't be missing, man. I like him.
I have a question about this show. Because this is like just straight up Cartoon Network, right? Like it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though it did get the TV PG rating, like most shows of theirs at the time, and Gendy does not consider it a children's show, but even then, I don't think most Cartoon Network shows are really children's shows. They're family shows or just general audience shows, but because they all have kind of adult elements to it, so they don't even need the Adult Swim label, even though this did rerun on Toonami after its cancellation.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things I liked about Cartoon Network shows when I started watching Cartoon Network, because I mean, I mentioned in an earlier episode, but I started watching it around when I was like a preteen, and then when I was a teenager, and then into like high school or whatever, with Clone Wars, and then watching well, Chowder was a little before then, but like regular show I loved, and then the DC shows that were on at the time, they were TV PG, so they were a little edgier, a little more mature, and they weren't pandering to kids.
Same with like the Canadian acquisitions like Total Drama or 16, which are pretty overt.
Yeah. So like
even though the censorship for Total Drama in the States is pretty hilarious if you think about it or watch the clips.
I mean, there's stuff on. I mean, just I'll get back to my point, but like there's stuff like in the commercials I would watch for Total Drama when I was watching something else like Clone Wars or whatever. Like it blew my mind as a kid. I was like, what is this show? This is on Cartoon Network? Like, what is it? And I guess that's the censored version you're saying. So I can't imagine what they were doing up there in Canada. But I forgot what I was going to say, but like as far as like Symbiotic Titan is concerned, the only clip I've seen of the show, and it's the one that's going around Twitter and Facebook and whatever, it's the shake it, booty quake it scene where like the white girl is like twerking in front of the robot.
Shake it, booty quake it, roll it around. Don't quake it, shake it, booty quake it, roll it around. Don't quake it, shake it, booty quake it, roll it around. Don't quake it, shake it, booty quake it, roll it around.
And I watched that scene, and I mean it's well animated. I'll give it that. But I was like, this is Cartoon Network. Like, what's the context for that scene? Why is she doing that? And like, why?
I think it was a house party they threw.
Is it? 'Cause she was by herself. Like, what's the like? Is it just random? Like, was Gindy trying to work through something at the time, or like? Is there a reason she did?
Because her and Octus were having an actual attempting to have a relationship, and it seemed like at that part because this character Kimmy is about as stuck up of a cheerleader character as you would expect, but try to impress her with this dancing, but even within the context, it's like it's kind of just crazy watching like how much they get away with that, because I mean I get why that's probably the most popular thing about this entire show was just that clip.
Yeah, it's like the animators put their all into that scene. Like I mean, like I don't know if you guys are watching She-Hulk, but like it puts the She-Hulk Megan Thee Stallion twerking scene to shame. Like it's Gendy. I mean, I guess kudos to him for getting Cartoon Network to sign off on that, I guess. But okay, I want to watch the show not just because of that, but just because it looks cool. I like the aesthetic of it and everything. And I like Jendi, and I want to see, like after Primal, like I want more, I want more of his stuff. I'm surprised it's not on. Well, now I'm not, but like at the time, I was surprised it's not on HBO Max. But as soon as they drop it on something I can watch, I'll definitely take a
It
look.
was on Netflix for a
It
bit, but then
was.
it got taken off that too.
It was, but at the time I was like, I didn't know it was him, or maybe I didn't know who Jendi was, and I was like, Symbiotic Titan, I'm not gonna watch that. And like I kick myself. I wish I could go back in time and stop myself from not watching. But any last things about that before we go into the last show?
No, it's an incredibly solid show that if you wanna complete your Genndy Tartakovsky completionist type watching, go seek it out. You could pay for it on iTunes. That's pretty much the only way to watch it. But I would say it's a good thing to seek out if you want to see like something that blends action and high school elements together very well.
Yeah, and also while you're at it, while you're completing your Jendi Tartakovsky watch that scene from Iron Man 2 when War Machine and Iron Man are fighting all the droids, because didn't he or the drones? Because didn't he storyboard that sequence, that action scene?
He did.
Which,
Wow.
yeah, which is why that scene is like the best part of the movie. Like the only reason to watch that. I don't hate Iron Man 2. I think it has aged a lot better. Than like Thor 2. But still, like you could tell that he had a hand in that sequence because like it's incredible. But okay, so really quickly, let's talk a little bit about. I mean, it seems like the plan for the show in general was to talk about break the segments up into movies, television, and video games. And it seems like we barely talk about video games because most of our guests don't play anything. Yeah, okay, so let just briefly, real quick before, because I know Dameon has to jet like Dash. Just briefly, we grew up playing licensed video games when it comes to these cartoons and movies and stuff. Just going around the table, do you want to quickly bring up some video games based off of cartoons that we played that probably weren't as good as we remembered? Like I brought up Shrek already. Anything else? Ryan?
The only one I can remember. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, if you want me to go first, well, keeping the Cartoon Network train going, one game I will bring up is an interesting piece called Cartoon Network Racing.
Now for a quick getaway. Start your engines and get ready to burn rubber in the most outrageous kart racing video game ever, Cartoon Network Racing. Race as your favorite Cartoon Network characters, each with their own unique and crazy tune powers. Use special weapons to blow by the competition. Compete in over 24 exciting circuits that will push your driving skills to the limit, or challenge your friends in multiplayer mode. Do you have what it takes to bring home the cup? Cartoon Network Racing, available now for PlayStation 2 Computer Entertainment System and Nintendo DS, rated E for everyone.
This is during that era where a lot of games wanted to be Mario Kart or Mario Party, and they tried to emulate that formula. And that's what this game does. This came out 2006. It's a pretty straightforward concept. Cartoon Network characters racing each other. However, even though this game came out in 2006, the catch is it's none of the characters that from shows that were still airing at the time. So there's no Billy and Mandy, no Kids Next Door, no Fosters, no Camp Lazlo, no My Gym Partner's a Monkey, no Ben 10, and perhaps the biggest omission, no Ed, and Eddie. So instead, what we get 6 shows, all of which happen to be are considered like the classic Cartoon Network shows, and that these were the ones that were no longer producing new episodes at the time. So you get to play as characters from Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken, I Am Weasel, the Powerpuff Girls, and Courage the Cowardly Dog. And one of the benefits of it is you get all the original voice actors reprising their roles. But the other interesting thing is, for all 6 shows, there's like 1 or 2 characters that are locked. So, for example, if you want to play as a Dexter character, Mom and Dad are locked. If you want to play as a Powerpuff Girls character, Fuzzy Lumpkins and him are locked. Or my favorite, if you want to play as a Courage character, Eustace is locked. So you have to get him. You have to get all of them unlocked when playing these levels. And similar to that at Double Dash or other Mario Kart type games, every level is based off of a specific show. So you're either driving through Townsville or nowhere or anywhere else like that, and the levels are designed with you get to collect items, you get to pick which character you're driving, you get to pick a driver, and it's by no means groundbreaking in the slightest, but it's such a fascinating little piece because it is like one of the few platform 3D Cartoon Network crossover games, because the only time you would get games like that would be either the Game Boy Advance or the less said about Punch Time Explosion years later, the better. But it's a fun game overall for like the sake of nostalgia, because the levels are designed with a lot of detail as far as like what they're doing. You get to collect a few stuff, but yes, but since I was trying to keep this Cartoon Network themed because of the 30th anniversary, that is such a strange relic of a game that I just felt like I had to bring it up amongst all the other games that they churned out for decades on then and continue to churn out.
Yeah. Let me see. Dameon, I know you have to go. Ryan, are you able to stick around for a little bit longer? Is that at all?
If you need me to, sure.
Okay, Dameon, like I know I feel bad like keeping you here. So like would you mind if like after you go, like Ryan and I continue and then we could really go off on like the Muppets and
Are you asking me? Are you asking me? Do I mind if you two talk while I'm gone?
Well, yeah, I don't want it to sound like I'm cutting you out. It's just like I know you have somewhere to go, and like I feel bad.
I got
like,
something. Yeah, it's like you shouldn't feel bad. I got somewhere to go. You guys can easily continue.
Like you come back, and you find out it's called The Catch Up, the Sean and Ryan show. And then you got cut out.
I'm getting divorced, and that's the divorce. I'm gonna need some alimony.
Okay. Was there something else you wanted to add to that before you go? Or?
I was just gonna say my favorite childhood game was, TV show to game was Battle for Bikini Bottom.
The battle for Bikini Bottom in 15 seconds. Bikini Bottom was a lovely place, but now it isn't. The evil plankton has taken it over. SpongeBob has to save it. That's him tongueboarding. Why is he doing that? Can't get into that now. It's the new SpongeBob video game, and it's on a bunch of different game systems, and it's rated everywhere.
Yes.
That was my joint. That one was classic. I got the remastered for PS4.
Yeah.
When it came out. Rebubbled, I think they called it.
Rehydrated.
Rehydrated, yeah. There you go.
The thing about Battle for Bikini Bottom was that I heard how great a game it was when it came out, but for whatever reason, I kept getting the different versions of the game. Like I got the PC version. Ryan, I don't know if you remember there was the PC SpongeBob disc set where it was like 4 PC SpongeBob games. Where it was, do you know what I'm talking about? It was a box set.
Yeah.
It was Operation Krabby Patty, Employee of the Month, Battle for Bikini Bottom, and Nicktoons Basketball. And Battle for Bikini Bottom, it was nothing like the console version. It was like a mini game collection with like a loose plot with the robots or whatever. So I played that, and then I played the Game Boy version of Battle for Bikini Bottom, which was like it was like a side scroller thing. But I always wanted to play the console version of the game and the movie game because I heard, both of those games are like the best SpongeBob games. And I didn't end up playing them until like 2016, where I found like a website where you could buy old like retro games. And so I bought both of those for the GameCube, played SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, and it absolutely held up, to 2016 standards at that time. Like as a platformer, it was incredible. The movie game, not so much. That's a whole other thing, like reasons why. But bless you, Dameon. I absolutely agree. Battle for Bikini Bottom, like as far as like top tier, like adaptations of cartoons in video game form, that works. The remake that they made, that was just as good. It actually fixed some of the problems I had with the original game. And it was great counter programming because it came out around the same time as The Last of Us Part 2. which I love The Last of Us Part 2, but like that game like messed with me. Like it was kind of scary. Like there were some parts of that game that were kind of traumatizing. So like when it got too heavy, I would stop playing Last of Us and then I would move over and play SpongeBob and just end my night playing in Bikini Bottom. And
Sean
it
is just a scaredy cat.
hey man, the Rat King at the under
Yeah, that was
the
nasty.
hospital. Like I
That
had
was
to take a
not.
break, man. So I absolutely love Battle for Bikini Bottom, but Dameon, you got to go, don't you? You got to.
Peace on the streets. Pleasure to meet you, Ryan. Even though I didn't
Pleasure
see
to
your
meet you
face,
too.
I hear your voice.
This is like a crossover for me. Like I know, like with cartoon crossovers, like part of it, you like hearing characters from one show say the names of characters from other shows because it makes it kind of surreal. So hearing Dameon say Ryan Walterson, like it kind of blows my mind. I was like, man, it's like my two worlds are colliding. Um, Before you go,
it's like the sea and city of podcasts.
It's like, what is this? A crossover episode? Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Catch Up, the Sean and Dameon Show. I am Sean.
I am Dameon.
I am Weasel. I mean, I am Ryan.
Yes. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye.
That was fantastic.